With the news of BFN's cancellation, Masked Koopa and myself got a hold of various PvZ content creators and asked them a few questions as a way to commemorate the franchise and the community the PvZ Shooter series has brought together over the years. And without further ado, let's get on to the interviews. As probably the most known streamer of the PvZ shooters, do you think your streams reached a different audience than videos found on YouTube?
I would say no, because my streams, like, even though I do have like the most viewers on Twitch when I stream PvZ, it's unfortunately not a lot. I pull in probably on average 20 viewers per night. And I advertise my YouTube channel heavily on my streams. So pretty much everyone that watches my stream, you know, they already know that I have a YouTube channel, but that's not really the case with YouTube. A lot of people on YouTube, a lot of subscribers don't know that I have a Twitch stream. And sometimes I get visitations from them saying, oh, hey, I didn't know you streamed. I love your videos and whatnot. So I'd say it's the opposite, because yeah, even though I do have like the most viewers on Twitch for PvZ content, it's unfortunately still not enough, and my YouTube videos generally get a few hundred views throughout the week, and that's like 20/25 times more than my concurrent viewers on Twitch.
Being a streamer, do you think on average you are targeted by people in-game seeking attention more often than other content creators might have been?
I don't think so, because a lot of my viewers on Twitch, they're generally my friends, so generally they don't really target me at all. If it is, I'd say the only one that really kind of semi-targets me is like Jim Joe Jeffrey, but it's kind of in a friendly way. But I had, you know, people on YouTube may stream snipe me because they might recognize my name, and you know, they know I have like I have like over 10,000 subscribers, so generally they target me. I get targeted from YouTube. But in my stream, you know, I'm generally friendly. I know who they are, and yeah, they're generally not malicious in terms of like stream sniping me. I did have one time where it got really bad to the point where I had to delete. It's the first and last time I basically deleted anyone off Origin. It was some guy called, I think, Bill Barra. This happened way back in Garden Warfare 1. I would talk to him casually, and then one day he just went, I don't know what happened to him, like he got possessed or something, and then like every single game I had, he would either use Super Commando or Toxic P, and he would not play the game. Like, he would literally just wait for me. Like, he, you know, you can have like a ton of my teammates walk by him. He doesn't do anything until I arrive. And then, you know, as a P shooter, he'd probably wait like on a high area. The second he'd see me, I'd hear him hyper. And yeah, I had to fight him to the death. And yeah, he would pretty much be like, he was like a robot against me. Like, his mission in each of the sessions was just to take me down. And yeah, I had no idea what happened to him, but unfortunately it got so bad where I had to delete him, because even though I did end up, you know, vanquishing him a lot of the time because I already had an escape route, I usually just ran over to my teammates and finished them off. It was just not enjoyable whatsoever, because I do, like, most of the time that I play, you know, Garden Warfare, it's when I stream, and I stream like 2 hours per night, and I just at a certain point I just ran out of tolerance, and that's the only player I ever had to delete off my Origin. And this was back in Garden Warfare 1, so that's the only bad time I had with a stream sniper or a targeter, and he was on my list. So I could also I'm kind of guilty of this as well, because when I do see Zack Scott, you know, I don't go out of my way to vanquish him, but like when you do vanquish him, like, you kind of gotta taunt him, because like, he's Zack Scott, so you just, well, you know, you're always genuine to see what his reaction is when you're watching his videos, and you see him, you know, you see yourself vanquishing him, and then he probably reacts to it. Like, people just like seeing stuff like that. But yeah, I never went out of my way to target like Zack Scott, but you know, when you vanquish him after like a long fight, you know, you kind of just have to taunt at that point.
How do you feel about the fact that a streamer mode stayed on the Trello for such a long time without being added? Do you think it would have helped you much, considering how small the community is?
Probably not, because to my knowledge, streamer mode just, you know, makes everyone anonymous, so you can't see whoever targets you. But I don't think I was big enough to a point where, you know, implementing that would have affected me in any sort of way. So I'd say, yeah, it's fine. Like, yeah.
It is often said you are above average in terms of skill level when it comes to content creators. How much truth do you think there is to this? How do you think you match up versus the wider player base?
yeah, for content creators, I think I am. I think people could consider me like one of the best in terms of like skill level, I guess, because I know a lot of people make fun of Zack Scott due to his like, I guess the way he plays and whatnot. People just make jokes all the time, even though I don't make these jokes myself. I've seen it on my stream itself and stuff like that. People making fun of Zack Scott. And I think most people watch me due to, you know, my above average, I guess, skill level versus the other people of the player base, like the top, you know, people I consider top tier, like let's say Ariscate, Pilostero, I think High Heat Bomber, Krook, you yourself, you know, Mass Koopa, Bumblebird, ZApocalypse, and Skills. I think I'm like a tier below them in terms of skill level, because I generally, like, I know who the best players are. I'm talking mostly about Garden Warfare 2, not BFN. Like, I know who the top tier players are, and when I see them, I make note of them, and I either kind of avoid them or I attack them when they're kind of busy with some other of my teammates. So I think compared to the rest of the player base, you know, I could hold my own against pretty much any player due to the fact that, you know, I pick out the players who are the best and I kind of ignore them / attack them at the best opportunity. So I never get completely stomped by one of those players because I always try to avoid head-on, you know, confrontations with them.
You've previously showcased some relatively harmless glitches on your channel. Have you ever had any reservations or second thoughts about showcasing some glitches? Have you ever avoided showing something of fear of damaging the multiplayer experience? And has PopCap ever contacted you about probably fixing some of these?
So I have shown some many glitches, yes. One thing is I try not to show glitches that are harmful to the multiplayer, like you said, because I fear people would abuse it. So there was a lot of, you know, the team swap glitch online, never showed that because I knew people would just abuse it and it would ban a lot of people that think it's harmless. I have contacted PopCap a lot of times, but they never contacted me about anything. And I have reserved, like you said, a lot of glitches to just myself.
And you're also known for your minigame series, in which you flip conventional rules of Garden Warfare to make something completely different. Did you enjoy creating this type of content in any particular game more than the other? If so, why?
Yes, so between BFN and Going for 2, right?
Yes.
Okay. Going for 2, I've enjoyed it a lot more over the years compared to the 1 year with BFN. Because the Backyard Battleground was a lot better than the Giddy Park, and there wasn't private play with BFN till just recently, and even that was not even that good. So it was a lot more fun to do the mini games, have better ideas with the variants, and all in general with just Going for 2 than from BFN.
Do you feel that investing into the skins of BFN paid off? Do you feel that skins in Brux's shop were fairly priced, or would you have changed the cost if you had been in control?
No, I don't think that it was really that worth it. In my opinion, I did spend a lot of money doing it, but I was really loving showcasing the skins in videos just for people to see them in action stuff. And one thing I would really change with the pricing, I think it was a little bit too expensive. And if I was to change something with it, it would probably be, I would like the items to be with coins and with rainbow stars or something that they were able to do. Because I just felt like it was unfair for the players with a bunch of coins. I couldn't get anything new. And there was just a bunch of new skins with rocks.
I noticed there's a lot of variety in the way your thumbnails advertise your content. Do you feel there's more interest for a thumbnail showing more visual things, so things like skins, mugshots of variants or legendary hats, or more gameplay-focused things such as screenshots of gameplay or allusions to functionality, so saying new upgrade, playing X with Y?
I'm going to be 100% real with here. I don't spend much time on my thumbnails, but I would say I like the mugshots and the legendary hat things better just because it's simpler and just shows what the video is instead of doing gameplay and having more things pop out. I'm not too into making very complex thumbnails, I would say, but I like the mugshots and, like you said, the first option.
What's quite interesting is that your main channel growth seems to have been off of BFN, which is in pretty strong contrast to most other PvZ shooter YouTubers, who mostly carried over their existing audience. What do you think allowed you to grow off of BFN so well?
Well, I think probably the main thing is that I'm relatively new compared to most YouTubers when it comes to the PvZ scene. I've done a lot of, well, I haven't, I knew a lot about PvZ. I'd played a lot of the games and stuff, and I was kind of in a stage with the channel where, because I hadn't even got to 1,000 subscribers at that point, and I was sort of experimenting with what was working, what wasn't, and I decided that with this new Plants vs Zombies game coming out, I thought it'd be something that I knew a lot about and something I could do a lot of content on, and so that's kind of where I went to it. And I know part of the reason a lot, there was, we had Wolfy and we've got Zero who've been doing PvZ a lot longer than I have. And I think just getting into when a new game comes out is a lot easier than trying to break into something that's been going for a while. But no, I think that's kind of the main reason, really. And unfortunately, Battle for Neighborville didn't do anywhere near as well as people thought that it was going to. And so, yeah, it kind of allowed for this gap in the market that although not many people were playing it, there was not many people actually doing that much content on it in terms of covering news and all those types of things. So I think that's mainly why mainly how the growth came as far as I can think about. So yeah, I think that answers your first question.
Yeah, well, I definitely noticed that a lot of the the old crew were making like a lot less videos on BFN than they probably could have. Yeah,
definitely. So yeah, and I think that was just, it was just not, I mean, it wasn't intentional, I guess. Initially it was just like, oh, there's a new Plants vs Zombies game, I really want to cover this game, and then I guess it just so happened that I think the content just sort of fell off from the other YouTubers, and I was kind of like, I want to still keep going on this. I'm still really enjoying this game. So I think it just allowed for, even though there were other YouTubers doing PvZ content, there weren't that many actually doing Battle for Neighborville ones.
Yeah, it seems like their interests sort of dropped off. It's kind of refreshing to have someone who is actually a little bit more enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, I think that's possibly a reason as well. I think, I think for any YouTuber who's been doing a game for a long time, it can, I know Wolfy had a video that he explained all about it. And I think that's partly the reason, it becomes difficult. Yes, we're only 1 year in, but to keep consistently thinking of new content and stuff, that's one of the difficulties with YouTube. And yeah, I can understand that, and I just yeah, me coming along with sort of like a fresh look on it. I've probably played BFN more than I've played Garden Warfare 2. I played those games, but I know most of the community have preferred those games. But for me, I was kind of coming in at a fresh look at BFN, hadn't touched the other shooters for a while, and so yeah, I think that sort of fresh perspective, I think people probably enjoyed as well. So
what would you say was like the main content that you covered in terms of BFN?
Well, I think the main thing, the top main three things that I was covering was has been news. We've also had guides, and we've done a few tier lists, but I guess the main thing I sort of think about is, why do people want to come up? What are people getting from coming to watch my content? And part of it, I think YouTube went through this stage in the early stage where playthroughs, that was the thing to do. Everybody was doing playthroughs and that got people loads of views. But YouTube's kind of changed in the fact that playthroughs aren't necessarily the way to go anymore. If you have a look at lots of big YouTubers, if you compare playthroughs to actual news or something that's informative, I think that was I think that gets you more sort of attention. It has a reason for people to go, oh yeah, I feel like I'm learning something from this. I also went back and I think this is something for anybody who's starting YouTube, really, is to have a look at what's been done in the past, what's done well, and can you do the same thing again, or can you make it better? And that was sort of how I looked at it, I knew there was tons of guides on Garden Warfare 2, and I looked at that and said, okay, well, what if we did this for BFN? And that's sort of that's where we went down the line, and we went down that route. And I think as it progressed, as Battle for Neighborville changed and stuff, and it became less popular, we started having issues, community with balancing issues, all types of things that people were concerned about the game. And then we just kind of came, the channel's kind of it's gone more to discussion videos. Where's PvZ heading next? So it's all about sort of thinking about what are people going to, what do people want to see right now? What's interesting at this point in time. And I think combine that with, good quality content and those types of things, it really helps. But I also, to sort of, in contrast to all those sort of formal videos, as I would class them, we also had live streams that, I think just because of how I am, and I tend to ramble a lot, and which is partly the reason why I script my videos. But in live stream, it kind of had this complete contrast where, I'm goofy and, all those types of things that really sort of were a contrast in what people were seeing. And I think I then got into a stage, and I think a lot of people, when they do live streams, they just sort of have like, playing Battle for Neighborville with subs. But I thought it was really important that a live stream should be treated almost in the same way as a video, in the sense it should have something, that there's a point to the live stream. It has something to do. So we started doing lots of creative, creative live streams that all either brought a new sort of a new perspective on BFN. We had this one where we got everybody in Giddy Park and actually made it a battle over Neighborville, and I think those types of things people really, really enjoyed as well. And then I guess the other thing that I have done, which is definitely more unique than all other PvZ YouTubers, is my Photoshop. So I've done a lot of realistic character creations. I'm a graphic designer, so it was a nice chance to combine what I do in my channel, gaming, but with something design related. So that was another, they haven't particularly, there's a lot of other videos that people have seemed to enjoy more, but it's definitely something I could offer that not many others could. So, yeah.
What are your thoughts on showcasing modded content? Do you have any moral hang-ups about doing so?
Well, to be honest, I've always been a fan of mods, because I used to do a lot of Fallout 4 content and Fallout New Vegas, and those communities have, there's a Nexus mods, and the community comes together and creates these really fantastic mods that are sometimes even better than what was in the game originally. So I've always been a real big fan of mods, if obviously with it being allowed. And I think obviously there is a moral thing with Garden Warfare 2. Should it be modded, or are we technically breaking the terms of service? But for me, I've never had a problem with mods. I think they're a really good way to extend the life cycle of a game, and I think by showcasing these things, again, it was something different. But I also make sure to say, look, you can use these mods, but please don't do this please don't use it in a negative way. Please don't go online and ruin the experience for others. And I think that's something I've always, tried to put in the video, to say, look, I'm using this against bots. I don't think this is fair. I want to just show you what cool things that people have made that can, and I know there's been so much attention around people wanting to see like, oh, this is so cool. I really want to go back to Garden Warfare 2. I want to check out these mods, and it's another reason to come back to the game. And I think if they would allow it, seeing BFN mods would be great. I think it would bring people back. People would add in things that were missing. People would start adding variants and all those types of things. And I think that's what mods really allow for. So I'm a big fan of mods, but yeah, like I say, just if you just don't use them online, really. And no, I never had any moral hangups, particularly because I'd done content on mods before, so I was kind of aware of that. But yeah, big fan of mods, but no moral hangups particularly.
How do you think being one of the few PvZ YouTubers to showcase modded content has affected your channel, if at all?
I think, well, the only thing I can say is it's had an impact positively, one of my most viewed videos is a mod video. And it's also enabled me to work with some really good modders. There's been loads of people who've approached me and said, look, I've done this mod, especially one particular mod author. So yeah, I mean, it's only impacted the channel positively as far as I can see. Yes, there's comments here and there now and again that say, oh, you're one of these modders, ruining the game for other people. But, I come back and say, look, I'm not doing this in a negative way. I'm just doing it. It's not affecting any other player. It's only myself and my own game. So yeah, I don't think it's had any negative impacts.
What is the main difference between creating a news video versus making a gameplay video, at least when it comes to planning? Do you prefer one over the other?
Well, there's two things to it, that both of them have pluses and minuses. So when it comes to a video, how this normally will work is I will write a script, because I think it's really important not to ramble, particularly when it comes to like news videos or informative videos. And I know it's my, it's one of my own personal flaws that I do ramble and can't always make the sentences. I'll add a lot of unnecessary bulk, like I'm doing right now. So that will come in the form of do the script. Then it'll come to do the audio, find the clips I need, and kind of put it all together. When it comes to gameplay videos, they're much easier in terms of planning, because you don't really have to do very much in that regards, because you're just kind of recording, and then almost the planning comes after. But I get the difficulty with gameplay videos is you have to be entertaining. So, it's more the performance side of things that then become the work. So like I say, there's pluses and minuses to both, but in terms of when it comes to editing and gameplay, the gameplay ones are far easier and far simpler, and they can be done quicker. But it doesn't necessarily mean they're any easier. They're just a different type of difficult. In terms of which I enjoy more, it kind of depends what mood I'm in, I guess. Because I think with videos, it's kind of like the reward comes at the end. You kind of making this video, and it's kind of the thing that keeps you going, oh yeah, this is going to be great. People are going to watch this, and it's going to be really, really good, and they're going to really enjoy it. And that's where the sort of like, the emotional reward comes in. But when you're actually doing a gameplay video, you kind of get in that buzz whilst you're recording, whilst you're in the moment and actually having fun playing the game. Because I know a lot of the bigger YouTubers who do it full time, they have a lot more time to sort of play the games and enjoy it and get more sort of that in-depth overview. Whereas for me, I work 2 jobs, and I do this in my spare time. So a lot of it, I enjoy the gameplay side of things, because it actually means I can actually play the game, whereas rather than going into the game specifically to get content. So yeah, I like both for different reasons.
Have your modded videos ever had your viewers believing the content showcased to be official? If yes, how have you handled the confusion that may arise?
Yeah, we've certainly had comments from people thinking the mods are real, and I think this is one thing that I've always felt is really important for YouTube in general, is replying to comments. I know when YouTubers get bigger, it becomes very difficult to reply to everybody, but I always try my best to do, to reply to everybody I can. And if I do see a comment like that, it's sort of handling it, you've got to handle it politely and nicely and say, no, this isn't really in the game. This is just a mod. So yeah, there's not been I've not had any real problems, but how I deal with it is, just responding to them really. And people really appreciate, you spending your time as a YouTuber, spending time to actually look at their comment and actually reply to them. And I think I've had so many comments of people really appreciate that I've replied to them, and and these are the people who enable you to do what you love doing. So I think it's really important that you interact with them. And yeah, so that's how I usually handle things.
How did you go about dealing with the fact that Garden Warfare 2 and Battle for Neighborville share some music tracks? Did you get any people asking you to upload music that you had already done so as a result?
Yes, I did. I had dealt with people asking for the extraction music from Garden Warfare 2, which is used as the final objective music in all but three of Battle for Neighborville's turf takeover maps. People requested it. They did not know it was used in Garden Warfare 2, and that's just amazing, of course, because PopCap had to reuse music and make things difficult. I think I had to change the thumbnails of the Garden Warfare 2 music. That I did have to make sure that people knew that these were used in Battle for Neighborville as the turf takeover music.
So, I mean, it's quite interesting because they, I would say it's interesting that people didn't notice that the tracks were reused, even though a lot of people probably did play both games. So, in that sense, I suppose you could say that it was justified reuse.
I guess in a way you could say it's justified reuse, but I'm pretty sure most people did notice, but a lot of people didn't. I think a lot of people did start the series with Battle for Neighborville, and that's people who were asking.
What has been your most requested music track?
Dreadwood's theme, easily. That theme was most requested. I got a ton of requests for that, and it actually took me a lot of time to get it out of the files. Because of them having very terrible naming.
What's the longest, would you say, that you've ever taken to get a music file out of the game?
I would say that it was probably Dreadwood's theme, because I had a lot of time between Dreadwood's theme. I started uploading Battle for Neighborville music on September 7th of 2019, and I did not get around to Dreadwood's theme until October 4th.
Was it the format? Or was it just the naming?
The naming made it very, very painful to find it, because they name things terribly. I think Blightcap's theme in the files was called Plant Boss A instead of Blightcap.
I mean, would you say that perhaps the naming conventions of the music might indicate how quickly they had to make the game?
It could, because a lot of things in Battle for Neighborville's files, especially all the new music, is grouped under a folder called Picnic. There's Music, Picnic, and Picnic. And they are all grouped under all that. It's very strange. It makes things hard to find. It could indicate that they were forced to rush it out, because there is some new music that's not under these folders. It's mostly in the ops folder.
Wasn't there some sort of controversy with the Dreadwood music and some sort of Nintendo music?
Yes. Now, back in Founders Edition, in the files, there was present so people noticed back in Founders, when I uploaded Dreadwood's theme, that it sounded a lot similar to Final Bowser from New Super Mario Bros. Wii, I think. And of course, this is not a coincidence. It's definitely intentional. In the files, they had a file called Boss Fi Intro. It's misspelled. They had that in the files. It's a 7-second clip of the intro to Final Bowser in that game. And it was probably used as a placeholder for when Dreadwood was in development. And it was noticed by Nintendo magazines, and I think they did an article on it, but PopCap never got in any legal trouble.
Maybe Nintendo didn't notice it.
Probably. Which is a good thing.
I think you might have mentioned at some point that they did something similar in PvZ 2.
They did. They had tracks in PvZ 2 that were actually normal 80s music. They were just 80s music ripped out to sort of convey the jam themes in Neon Mixtape Tour. They were used for that, and of course, this did get noticed by data miners, but of course, this was only in like one beta version. After a while, they just switched to using the correct music.
So, what has your relationship been with PopCap? Because I heard they took notice of you.
So I think I would have a pretty good relationship with them, because I did talk to like Sean Laker in the off times about stuff like Garden Warfare 2's hacker problems, which are very, very irritating. But back in relating to music, of course, trying to think here. So in the Plants vs. Zombies YouTube channel, I'd actually used, I think it was Giddy Park's theme, RIP. They put that on their community tab, and I think they also once went on Reddit and put the Mech Gargs theme from Garden Warfare 2 in a post about Z-Mech from PvZ 2 coming to Arena.
Do you think there's a specific reason that they chose your channel over, I think the more subscribed channel, Albird?
I would say that it was because he didn't have them uploaded at the time. He only uploaded them after I uploaded them, and of course there was controversy with that because he definitely did not rip them himself most of the time. But after that, I think they used mine because they were just generally a higher quality than all the other options. Because all the other options at the time had in-game sounds playing in the background, of course. Because before 2018, no one knew how to rip the files.
I'm surprised there's a significant quality difference between recording in game and directly ripping the files. You would think they'd have a similar quality. They don't
exactly have a similar quality in most cases, but sometimes there is cases of worse quality. And this is mostly seen with the Plants vs. Zombies 2 Chinese version, which has terrible music quality.
I noticed that a lot like other YouTubers, you uploaded a lot less Battle for Neighborville to your channel, but unlike other channels, you did not return to Garden Warfare 2, or at least not as much. Did you face any challenges making videos for the game, or was it more of a personal preference?
I felt like the previous games had a lot more content to cover. They had multiple subclasses, whereas this game only had, one version of each class, and then occasionally they would release like maybe a new, ability that kind of changed how the class works, almost like a subclass. But there were a lot fewer things to showcase overall once I was done with the single-player story-based stuff.
What was it like switching from console to PC? What were the downsides you noticed from doing so, and did you ever regret making the jump?
Yeah. So in regards to the PC, I didn't notice any downsides for Garden Warfare 1 or 2. I kind of I felt like a better player because when I was playing the console, I gravitated more towards characters like Chomper and Scientist and Sunflower because I wasn't a great aim on the console with a controller. And then once I switched to the PC, that's when I started like, man, I love Agent P. I could like aim a lot better, and and the other characters were still useful, but I was a much better aim, and I didn't really notice any downsides until Battle for Neighborville when it came down to the player base just being a lot smaller. I felt than the previous games, and the biggest challenge for being on the PC was a lack of a player base. A lot of the lobbies I had, and I've heard that the console wasn't as bad, but a lot of the lobbies I had on PC were at the beginning were like the same people over and over, like team stacking, or later on it was like just a lot of bots, and that also prevented me from doing like a lot of the ranked stuff because I would just never get ranked matches on the PC, and so that was a big challenge. I also had a technical issue that was an origin issue where it wouldn't launch the game unless I like signed out and like logged into another account, and then and then play the game and then sign back out, log back into my account. And that was an issue that I could never get fixed by Origin support. And it was the only game that did it.
We've noticed that you are featured in both official PvZ2 related events as well as things such as developer interviews. How would you describe your relationship with PopCap Vancouver? And how did that relationship differ with PopCap Seattle?
Yeah, so I would say maybe, longer than 5 years ago, I would actually I made a couple trips to Seattle and, interfaced with both teams in Seattle. And so I got to, do some Plants vs. Zombies 2 stuff there, but I also got to do Garden Warfare stuff there. And that's where I met Justin Weeb, Jeremy Van Hooser. I'm pretty sure that's his name. I hope I didn't get that wrong. Yeah, and so and people like that there, and so I never really had a relationship exclusively with PopCap Vancouver. It was kind of all orchestrated through PopCap Seattle in a way. So I've never been to Canada, but I did get to meet the Vancouver team, a long time ago, and a lot of those people aren't even there anymore. Like Justin Weeb has moved on to another project. He's announced on Twitter. And so yeah, I don't have like a strong relationship at all with PopCap Vancouver, but I have a decent relationship with Seattle, just mostly via coordinating through their community managers, and I'm not sure what John. I don't know if John's just through EA in general, or if he's specifically towards. I don't really know what John's position is like, so but I interface with him a lot.
As the largest PvZ YouTuber, you're sort of a celebrity figure within this niche community. So much to the point where I've even had fans of yours add me on Origin and try to get in contact with you through me, or Mas Koopa, formerly known as Unicorn Jumper.
Yeah.
Has such a high status been awkward for you at all?
I mean, not really. I have a lot of people who reach out to me, and that's why I don't really have like friend requests and stuff enabled. So yeah, I hear that they reach out like people who are on my friends list first, or like people who are on my Discord server, as mods there. But it hasn't really been that awkward. I don't think.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Did this affect your interactions with fellow PvZ content creators?
No, I wouldn't say so. Probably the person I've interacted with most is probably Twothless. And he's a really cool guy. And I probably wouldn't have met, Twothless and some of the other people that I've met, like Koopa as well, were it not for, I guess, my status, because, I kind of met them in the game and they knew who I was, and then they were great players, and so I wanted to play with them more. So, yeah, and I guess probably the only thing that's really held me back from interacting with more PvZ creators is I know that a lot of them are on console, and they've asked me like, hey, you need to play on console so we can play together. I'm like, but then I don't have any of my characters. I don't have any of my progress. So that's probably the only thing that's really held me back.
What made you choose not to commentate your videos? Do you think it worked better for you, or do you think commentating might have allowed your channel to be a bit more successful?
In retrospect, it was a time where I was really shy. That was one point. I didn't think I had like a good personality in the first place that people would want to watch. I liked it how I could just focus on playing rather than talking, and I think that made my gameplays better. Secondly, it just made it easier. I didn't have to talk. I could just press a button, record, press a button to stop it, and then just upload that. It wasn't like any crazy amounts of editing. And especially for someone who didn't really know what they were doing in the first place, I could just do what I wanted to do. That was why I liked it. Would have made me more successful? Oh, maybe. I don't know. I think I filled a niche that some people wanted. I get comments from people who don't speak English, and I can still respond to them with Google Translate. So maybe there's that sort of global appeal of it. It also meant I could be quick. I remember when Garden Warfare 2 was pumping out updates, like Trials of Nomus especially. I was pretty quick in regards to getting out guides for that. But I don't know. I don't do it full time like Zach or Zero, and I'm not funny like Wolfy. So I think I'm happy just doing it how it is. It keeps it chill, and I like the the anonymous side of things. Yeah, I think it's this interview will be the first or second time my voice is on YouTube, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, you're gonna get doxxed.
Yeah.
Were you at all influenced by other non-commentated channels in the earlier days of the community, such as Illutium?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I noticed he stopped uploading Plants vs Zombies. It wasn't like the driving force to why I started uploading. I was making like Skyrim montages before, and I think I made a video with Koopa as well, and I was grinding for rank 313 to get the Unicorn Jumper at release. So yeah, I definitely started filling in that gap when I noticed he wasn't doing it anymore. Yeah, and I think it probably attributed to some of my success. But no, as I said, in regards to being influenced, it just came down to personal reasons. I felt shy and I didn't think I could do a good job commentating in the first place. But yeah, you're right in saying I was, I guess, motivated by seeing a lack of it.
What was it like moving from PC to console? Did you feel a little nervous? Like you were leaving people behind? What were your main reasons for switching?
I wanted a new challenge, firstly. Secondly, my PC is getting very old. It's a pre-built one from late 2012, so it's a really prehistoric machine, and I was worried that it wouldn't be able to hold up with the next game. I was playing all my other games on the PlayStation anyway, so I just thought, just for ease and convenience, I could play on PS4. At the time, though, I did plan on playing on both, like switching between them regularly, but with the prize map set up, and how much of a grind it was to get the prize bulbs in the first place. I found myself constantly torn for time. Like I couldn't play both because I didn't have enough time to finish either while also balancing, university work and all that. So did I feel nervous about leaving people behind? Obviously I missed people. I've made a new friend group. I add subscribers on PSN. If they comment down and want it, I'll add them. So I guess I didn't feel too nervous about leaving people behind because at the time I hoped to play on both. Those are my main reasons. A new challenge, more players, and my PC was getting really old. And I just thought, hey, I'm playing other games on the PlayStation, might as well switch and, keep it all in one place.
What was it like being a channel that largely got its foothold via a large channel? Did you ever feel any sort of pressure to live up to the expectations such an association might have?
Not at all. I guess as like a 15-year-old, I thought it was pretty damn cool I was playing with Zach in the first place. The fact he recognized me, I'd watched every single episode of Plants vs. Zombies 2, Garden Warfare. I remember watching live from PopCap and seeing him on that. I was just a fan like anyone else. So when I ended up in his lobby, it was just an exciting time. I think I was like copying the characters he was playing, and I was 15. I was just trying to get attention, I guess. But the whole time, I remember making a mental note. I never wanted to be, what's the term? I didn't want to piggyback off of his success. Like I never asked him to shout me out, or I think the most I ever got was like my channel in the description. But even then, when I was playing with him, I didn't actually get that many subscribers. Even to this day, I still get comments saying, wow, you're the guy who's in Zach Scott's videos. So I think, I definitely got a foothold to some degree because I think people were interested to see how I was playing from my perspective. That's what I'd upload. I upload just the no commentary gameplay of me following him around. But no, I never felt any pressure. I was just happy to be playing with him in the first place. I didn't want to get in his way. I just wanted to help out. That's what I focused on.
So how do you think your impressions have changed from pre-picnic personal previews with PopCap to closed alpha release picnic to founders and finally the official release?
I mean, honestly, my initial impression of it, I was so excited for the game. Like, I don't know if that's just one of the things where it's like new game, really excited, or generally excited. But when I saw like the new characters and stuff like that, that was amazing. The first time I saw the engineer and I saw how fat and chunky he was, I was like, yes, this is how he needed to be. I don't know if you had that same reaction or not, because people are kind of like either very for or against with the art style, but I honestly quite like the art style. I thought it's very cute and stuff like that. Rose was one that was like, at first, because it was very, very different. I'd say she looks more like a tulip than a rose, but yeah, I liked it. The free roam regions was one thing which was big, because I think from Garden Warfare 2, a lot of people wanted a lot of open world stuff, or like a heavy single player thing, or more in-depth single player things. So when I saw the free roam regions and I saw all the collectibles and the chests and the gnomes and everything, I was like, I love this stuff. I could do that stuff all day. But obviously, once you've done it once, you're probably not going to do it again. But I liked it. Once we got to release, like it definitely felt smoother, the gameplay and stuff like that. Obviously, they do balancing changes all the time and stuff like that. So obviously, you saw a lot of heavy changes in that regard. I think the scientist was ridiculous but obviously they're still making changes and stuff like that. But no, I like the game. I liked it when it launched. I liked it beforehand. I was really hyped about it.
Do you through that, do you think there might have been early signs of BFN heading where it ultimately did?
I would say that the one major red flag, which I was a bit unsure about, and that was not having character variants. I felt like as soon as you found out, okay, there's no variants in the game, I was like, a lot of people aren't going to like this because it's so different from the original game. But at the same time, I was like, okay, we've got upgrades in here. We didn't know how far those upgrades would go. So obviously, if they made it feel like different characters, then I'd be like, okay, I can get behind that. I feel like the upgrades didn't make that step forward, though. Like, the upgrades didn't feel like it was a new variant or a new character. The legendary upgrades did, I guess, to a certain point, but it didn't make up for the lack of variance in the game. For replayability, which is a bit of a shame. So I guess that's one of the things I would say a lot of people was going to be a bit didn't like about the game, and that was probably like one of the first flags, I guess. I would say that the way they announced it was very weird. Like literally finding out about it a few weeks before it launched was very bizarre. There was no big announcement and stuff like that, so that was weird. I don't know if that was the plan all along, or it was more of like we're gonna just release this game or something. I don't know if that was the case or not, but I feel like from what we played, it was pretty good. It's just the question of, was there enough content in there to launch with, like, because they did the Founders launch and release things stage by stage. So if you played like in September the 4th, you didn't get all of the content, and it was like bits by bits added. But I don't know, because I mean, like, I'm trying to think, like, they've not, what they added since launch. Like, obviously they've added legendary upgrades and they've done like a few maps and stuff like that, but comparing it to the previous games, what we've got, take away the variants, we still had all the modes. Yeah, granted they put it as mixed modes, but then we had massive single player and things like that, so there was a lot of content there to start off with, specifically on the single player side. But I don't know, I guess it's hard to see, because it's so different from the previous game. It's not like you can compare it to Garden Warfare 1 to Garden Warfare 2, it's like the same game, but there's a lot more variance, the single player. Because, I mean, that step from 1 to 2 was massive. They added so much more content, but because they decided to just do a whole 180 and make the game totally different to BFN, I guess it's hard to be able to compare it to the previous game. It definitely had its bugs, but I think every PvZ game's started with bugs. Specifically Garden Warfare 2 with that black screen, which was massive for ages.
Do you think your close ties with PopCap have made people unfairly distrust your opinion?
I would say it's probably done that. Yeah, I would say. I mean, like, not necessarily distrust, but probably people's opinions change with me being close to PopCap. You'll get some people that might be like, like, he knows things he can't tell us, or this and that, which obviously under NDAs that's the case in some circumstances. But then you get other people that think if something bad happens with the game, because I'm so close to PopCap and I haven't said something, or they've not made that change, they might think it's. I've seen some people that blame me for things that go wrong in the game and that I should make them do something different, which is a bit weird, but I don't know. I feel like people do have different opinions when they realize how close I have been with PopCap. But, if other people were in my situation and was be able to work with them very closely, you wouldn't say no, would you? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like, you would want to be able to talk to them, and you would want to be able to give feedback, and, I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't see anyone that would say no in my situation, and it's not like I'm paid to make decisions or anything like that, or anything like that. Like, I've been sponsored on videos, but it's never been something to lie about a product or anything like that. So
yeah, I think some people are sort of overestimate the influence that you might have had. They think, oh, Zero, he's telling them what the entire community thinks, whereas I think, at least in my experience, it seems like most of what PopCap gets comes from like Reddit or like Twitter or whatever. It doesn't seem like some shadow man steering everything.
Well, that's the thing, like, with the, because obviously I have the game changer role, as a PvZ game changer. People, like you said, they think I do more than I do. Like, as a game changer, I'm there to give feedback on things that I see and pass on the opinions that my community has, because they can't check every YouTube channel for comments and social media and everything like that all the time. So it's kind of like I pass on my community's feedback, or the game changers, pass on their feedback, and then they probably bring that to the team, and they're like, this is what these game changers communities are saying, this is what the data's saying, and then they kind of put things together and make a decision on it. But I couldn't just go up to them and be like, this is bad, this needs changing, and they're gonna go, yo, Zero said that's bad, we gotta change that. Like, that's not how it works. And some people think it is, unfortunately.
That is definitely the impression I get from the way some people talk about you. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Although I will
people can have their own opinion, like that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm cool with that, you know? Like, for some people it can be annoying to be able to find things out earlier if you're looking from the outside. And I totally get that. I've been on that side of things for a while. You know, Popcat's one of the only teams I'm close with. But so I know that feeling. And you know, you kind of like have an opinion from that side. But then you kind of have to see it from other perspectives as well, you know, like with a community that I've been able to, like, I can reach out to a certain community and get feedback that can definitely and hopefully push the game in the right direction. But I can't just go up and be like, yeah, this needs changing, and they're going to be like, okay. Like, any bugs I see, I'll tell them about that. I'll directly message them and stuff, you know, and it's like, this is a bug that needs fixing, and they're like, we'll get on that. But as far as like where you want the content to go and where you want the balancing to go, sure, you can give your feedback, but that doesn't always guarantee that's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, in the case of feedback, what's quite interesting is I haven't really been keeping super close track of your channel, but I've noticed that specifically in regards to Battle for Naperville, one big thing was that the community seemed pretty unanimous in saying, hey, we sort of want damage drop off in this game. Like, it was quite a large community outcry for it, and
I'm totally agree. I've been saying that for so long. I've been wanting damage drop off for ages. It was in GW2. I don't know why they didn't bring it into this game. To me, it's bizarre, especially for characters like I'm gonna say, what would be one of them? Like snipers, I don't feel like should have drop off. I feel like snipers should do the same damage wherever.
Have these close ties helped you create your content, or has it been beneficial in promoting it?
Oh, 100%. I can't deny that. I've been able to have promoted content from them. Some of it's been sponsored. Some of it hasn't been sponsored. They've just, decided to pick one of my videos and post it on the Garden Warfare 2 website or retweet or something like that, which honestly they don't really retweet or haven't really retweeted many videos in the past few years, but at the launch of Garden Warfare 2 they did, which definitely helped. But I think to get to that point, I did put a lot of work into it. I initially remember, like, I don't know if you viewers are going to be interested in this or not, but the reason I ended up started speaking to Contact with PvZ was I think I hit 1,000 subscribers on YouTube and they were live streaming on Twitch. And, me being cheeky that I am sometimes to try and get as much leaks out of information that I can all the time from Gary back in the day, I was like, I've just reached 1,000 subscribers because I think they was giving away sticker packs on stream or something like that. And your game has definitely helped towards some of it. Is there any chance I could maybe get a few sticker pack codes to give away to people? And they was like, sure. And then I think a couple of days later, they followed me on Twitter. We didn't really talk much, but I guess from there, I started promoting more, and then more of the devs started noticing the work that I was putting in. I guess that's how I kind of got closer to them. But I guess it's just one of those things where if you start, you got to be lucky when you start making content. Because, I mean, like, there's probably some amazing gems out there on streams and on YouTube, like much better than myself, much better than bigger creators, not just PvZ, but just in general. But if you don't start making the content at the right time, when it's like a niche market, it's going to be harder to grow. So the fact that I was one of the first ones to make content, along with Master of and other people like that, it helped you got noticed a bit easier, and therefore you could then grow with the team. And I guess you can go from there,
Have you ever found it difficult to know insider information and being unable to talk about it? Do you feel this has distanced you from the wider community in a way?
To a point, yes. Obviously when you know inside information, you have to sign NDA, so you can't talk about things, which is normally easy to just, I respect NDAs and stuff like that. I'm not going to blab or talk about anything. So that's usually not too difficult. When it gets a little bit more tricky is when something leaks and then the community ask all about it or something like that. And then I have to give let's say it's something was leaked and I'm under NDA and I can't actually confirm or not confirm whether something is happening or something is coming. And then I just have to try and, if I am put in a position to respond, I have to try and make up a response that makes it think that I don't know. if you get what I mean. I don't want to make it come across where it's kind of like, let's say, I'm trying to think of an example. I don't know.
Perhaps when that German game changer leaked his experience to a select few people, I think, and then because I remember you actually asked some people in a server I was in to sort of verify the claims.
That was one thing. Yes, so I think he accidentally posted something that he saw Battle for Neighborville with some other YouTubers or something like that at E3, and then was quickly told to delete the tweet or something like that. I had some people all over social media been like, oh, apparently this person has seen the game. Have you seen the game? And I just had to be like, I've not seen the game, because I wasn't allowed to say that I'd seen it. So I guess, yeah, that's a good example. At that point, I had seen it, but I couldn't say that I had. But because someone had accidentally said they did, I was questioned about it. So I guess that's one of the things which, you know, people might see that as, oh, you're lying to your fans and stuff like that. But I'm under NDA, you know, you have to respect that. If I break it, then I'm breaking the law. You know, I could get fined, I could get arrested, I could just get, you know, there's going to be consequences on my side. So
how much power would you say the game changer status actually held in the development process with both GW2 and BFN?
GW2, not too much, because I think the game changers for PvZ only was added around when Heroes came out. So was that at the end of 2016?
I think so.
I think that's when the PvZ game changes were made. So for Garden Warfare 2, nothing, if anything, apart from maybe some post-launch balancing patches or something, and maybe obviously the content, you know, with like Capture the Taco and stuff like that, maybe along the way, like, you know, a lot of, I think I don't even know the game changers would have done that, because I think a lot of people made it already vocal that they wanted that mode back in the game. And then obviously with the map, which was going to be added, they did a poll for that. So I don't know how much for Garden Warfare 2. For BFN, obviously when we saw the game, we gave feedback and lists of what we liked and didn't like about the game. Honestly, I can't even remember that full list off the top of my head.
Do you have you noticed any of, because the game changers I've spoken to, they sort of said that they gave some feedback, but there weren't really any noticeable changes made between that and then Picnic, and even then to the full release.
I'd say one of the ones which I mainly focused on was the way the aiming felt, and I think they even touched on this like post launch as well. I felt it was very clunky, and if you go play GW2, it's a lot smoother. And even to this day, I still feel BFN's very clunky with aiming, especially on a controller. I don't know what keyboard and mouse is like, but especially on a controller on console, it's very clunky, I guess is the word to word it. They had made improvements on that, but it's still not where I wish it was. Yeah, no, I had made it clear that I thought the balancing was the aiming was off, and obviously I think Sean, he addressed this post launch and was like, you know, we're still working on it and stuff like that. And then an update came out and was like, we made changes to it, it should be better, and it was better, but it's still not where I wish it was.
I noticed a few of your videos featuring Torchwood got more views than most of your other content. Do you feel that the success of GW2's new classes influenced the direction of your content, or the direction of your channel as a whole?
Honestly, when I started making the Team Torchwood series on my channel, I had no idea it was going to get so popular. That being said, I started taking Garden Warfare 2 videos out of like more of enjoyment rather than just business related. I know that's not exactly the question, but I think what I did was I think those videos helped spark my channel more as like people nowadays see me as creating Plants vs. Zombies content, which is which leads to more people watching me because of Plants vs. Zombies, hence the growth of my channel. So I think the Torchwood series probably helped contribute the growth of my channel, which now has 30,000 subscribers, which I think is really amazing. But since it's the second most popular video on my channel, it would make sense that a lot of people see me now as Plants vs. Zombies, which I hadn't intended I didn't expect it to get so popular in the first place.
We noticed that you did a collaborative video with fellow YouTuber Wolfy Playz in the early days of Battle for Neighborville. Do you think collaborative content creation was beneficial in this instance, and why do you think it was so rare during the days of Battle for Neighborville?
Well, when Battle for Neighborville first launched, very few people played it. And with that, I think not a lot of people have made videos upon it. So I think I was surprised that the collaboration with him, with Wolfy, made the Battle for Neighborville videos a little bit more popular as it is. And I guess that sort of sparked up the attention in media. But unfortunately, we both know that Battle for Neighborville didn't do so well compared to Garden Warfare 2. But I think because of how rare so many people have made collaborative videos on, not a lot of people owned the game at the time. And I think now that more people know about it because of those videos, I think that's how the community slightly grew a little bit more, but it's not as big as Garden Warfare 2 today.
How much do you still agree with your top 5 videos? Would you change anything about them had you made them now? How much effort is making a top 5 video versus making other types of content?
Well, if I looked at my top 5 videos on Plants and Zombies today, I would definitely change the entire list. The list I originally made is completely outdated today. In the plant video, I said Torchwood was number 1 because back then he was pretty powerful, but now that PopCap nerfed him a lot over the years, he's probably not even on the list today. If I had to change the entire list, it would be completely different. None of the stuff I would be including on it wouldn't even be would be completely different. As for making the videos, I think it would take some time to understand which characters in particular are more powerful than others. And I don't think it would be based on my opinion. I think it would be more on just talking to people first about it, seeing what they agree on and which characters they think are popular, whether or not they deserve to be on the list or not. So at the end of the day, it's not exactly my decision. It's more based on what other people believe and whether or not they agree with it. I talk with the other people first before I officially release the video. So long story short, making these different top 5 videos, it would take slightly longer than normal videos because of I'm putting a lot more effort into them.
We've noticed you haven't really been uploading BFN or GW content for the past few months, even before the cancellation. Would you say you've moved on from the PvZ shooters as a whole?
No, I haven't. I think I have been focusing on different things nowadays, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give up Plants vs. Zombie shooters forever. I think at some point I would like to go back to them a couple times over just for nostalgia purposes, but I think I don't intend on going back to Battle for Neighborville because I think Garden Warfare 2 is much better game entirely. And I think nowadays I just dislike Battle for Neighborville because of all the bugs and PopCap's failure to improve the game, especially now because of the cancellation. But I think I will definitely go back to Garden Warfare 1 and 2 out of the sake of enjoyment because I still have friends today that still enjoy those games a lot more than Battle for Neighborville. But even though I'm going to be focusing more on different related stuff on my channel, I'm not going to give up Plants vs. Zombies forever.
During your time as a content creator, you've arranged meetups throughout GW2 and BFN. What challenges did you face, and which game did you enjoy organizing these meetups in the most?
Well, first off about the meetups, I just want to say a huge shout out to Shark and Joe Assassin and Mr. Crazy Cactus. I think it changed into Jex. They were the first people that arranged the meetups during God of Warfare 2 days. Their meetups were amazing, and I basically wanted to do the same for BFN when I found out that more than 4 people can join on public Giddy Park. So when I started to do that, I did my very first one. I told everyone I'm going to do a meetup on my YouTube. I was going to stream it. I just basically wanted to gather loads of people just to have fun. And it worked out really, really, really well. I don't know how many people we had for the first one, but we did have, I'd say, more than 20, and it was probably the best one that I've had, just especially for our first meetup. We did have some challenges in the way, because it was a meetup, we didn't know what to expect. And funniest thing was when we all became P shooters and we all did the P Gatling. Everyone shot at the same time, I believe, and that actually crashed the game for everyone, which we glitched that we found out, I guess, and we had to set up the whole lobby again, which we had to keep on searching for dead lobbies in Giddy Park. So it was a challenge, but that was out of the way, and some other stuff as well. What was really difficult about making a meetup in a BFN as well was like, I know people wanted like, oh, Plants versus Zombies, can we have a fight in Giddy Park? Said we can do that, but there's going to be people that are breaking the rules. So, and we did have that. For example, when I told everyone to be a pea shooter, someone was a chomper and was just like messing around. I was expecting it in the first place anyway, so I knew this was going to happen. But other than that, when we did a God of Warfare 2 meetups, that was like Sharks. I'm going to do Sharks, for example. He basically had like, he was basically saying, okay, for one round in turf, let's all be Citron and let the zombies be foot soldier. So we had like a Citron versus foot soldier game. Remember that from one of my funny moments. I have to say, personally, I'd say Battle for Neighborville was probably the best one for meetups because you could fit up to 32 people in a lobby, which I believe I did have, but I believe it was 31, 32. I can't remember, but we did have at least 30 people all playing Acorn, and I did have it wasn't really a high quality picture, but it was like a low quality picture of like everyone as Oaks, which was incredible having 30 people. For God of Warfare 2, it's good having meetups, but the thing is now, because God of Warfare 2 is currently popular, it's gonna be hard finding a dead lobby and getting all the people in the game and queues and blah blah blah. It's just gonna be one of those. For Battle for Neighborville, all you gotta do, just find a quiet Giddy Park public one, invite people over, and then for some reason I think the lobby just starts to mess up, but that gets literally everyone in, and you're secured there. So yeah, to answer that question, I would say Battle for Neighborville is the best for meetups. Cool.
In some of your YouTube videos, you documented your journey to max rank throughout the games. Which game was the most enjoyable to progress through, in your opinion?
Yeah, each game had the different ways to level up. Like, you got the challenges from God of Warfare, and both XP are from God of Warfare 2 and BFN. The way that I did it for every single game, I just wanted to just play the game normally. Just for God of Warfare, I just did challenges. For God of Warfare 2, I just played every single character. And for Battle for Neighborville, I did the same. I just played every single character, just with the upgrades on. With everything, I did the PvE, I did everything. Literally completed the game on Xbox. That's what I did for my journey to max rank. And for Battle for Neighborville, it was definitely very different to God of Warfare 2. Because there weren't really a lot of variants. It's just like, you just gotta get a couple of kills on multiplayer and you're already leveled up like once, other than twice. I like the promotions and what they did. I really enjoyed when they announced Grandmaster because there was more to a grind. I wasn't really happy the fact that 901 was max rank because it was very easy to get max rank. But then when they introduced Grandmaster, I was really happy because I wanted that more grind, and I was quite happy with that. So, which state on my notes. I'd say the easiest level up was probably BFN because of the lack of the characters. I would say that if the leaked characters were out, like Iceberg Letters and all that, I'd probably say the grind would have been longer. But yeah.
As someone who reached max rank in BFN, what is your opinion on the developers prioritizing the removal of fast methods of EXP farming? Do you think these methods were fair?
Well, from my notes, the fast method ranking up was annoying. I have never done an exploit in the game, but I know how popular a topic it was in the community. Just like people in the community, they were like, "Oh, I want to get my bulbs fast. I want to do this fast." and people finding ways. I still remember this from one of the PvE, the Solar Sisters, I believe that's what it's called. I know everyone was abusing that just to get their bulb faster and everything. I have never done that. I've never done a single exploit. The way I leveled up was just from simple turf, because I was still a low ranker by then when all these topics were like trending. So I was just literally just leveling up through multiplayer because one of the reasons, which is going to answer one of the questions, the reason why I wanted to level up in turf multiplayer is because I wanted that experience. I wanted a PvZ experience. I just wanted to just have fun in multiplayer because I do enjoy a multiplayer game anyway with shooters. And I just want to have that fun, and it's a great experience as well for content. You know, something like if I find a glitch, I'm going to record it. If I have a funny moment with my friends, I'm going to record it. You know, it's just one of those things. So that's why I enjoy turf multiplayer. However, from that question, I was really happy when they removed a lot of the fast methods as they pushed players to go to multiplayer or PvE. So I was quite happy with that when they were quite quick on removing the fast methods. I know that there are currently some fast XP methods going on in the game. I know that there is. I don't know what they are currently, but honestly, I have never done any of them, and I'm really just a turf boy.
How do you think your status as a popular YouTuber has been affected by your willingness to speak your mind? Do you think that you might have been more successful if you had been more safe in your relationship with the game? How would you describe your relationship with PopCap/EA, if any?
I think the thing is, if I'd sort of played it safe and just sort of, I guess I'd say, toe the party line, that's not really something that I do. So it's, it's a question of, doing something, being someone that I'm not. And it might, if I had, there's a chance that I might have, the devs might have liked me a little bit better, or, I might have had some endorsement from the fact I kind of know I would have, because I'd been contacted by people who were, in talks with the devs. And they'd said to me a couple of times, said, you should be a bit nicer about it. But it's just, at the end of the day, I was more interested in the game itself, and actually, I want to see this get better. So, if I think something's wrong, I'm just going to say something's wrong.
How would you describe PopCap's response to community feedback in regards to balancing, especially considering their promise to further involve the community's suggestions throughout BFN's development?
I think they definitely were involving the community a little bit more in the changes, but the thing about that is I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword, really, because you got a lot of different people playing the game. You got people who just sort of play casually for a bit of fun, people who take it a bit more seriously, and everyone's got a different perspective, a different outlook on what they think is good and what they think needs changing. So yeah, it's one thing saying, we want to involve the community, but then you can fall into the trap of listening to the wrong people sometimes.
So you believe they kept their promise?
To an extent, I think they definitely listened to the community, but then again, I think, I don't think they necessarily listened to the community any more than they did with the previous games. Like, we got balance patches in the previous games, which, fixed things that needed fixing. And I remember late in GW2, they asked people if they wanted to see entire classes reworked, and they did that. But it's just, there's so many different perspectives to look at that sometimes saying, we're going to, just go hard in on community feedback. You have to be a bit careful about who you kind of listen to, I think.
Wildflower and TV Head don't appear to be monetized as far as we know, and it seems like they were still working on gameplay content up until the sudden cancellation, such as Iceberg Lettuce and a playable laser beam boss, among others. How do you think the further development of last-minute content fits into your theory regarding BFN going through the squeeze, as you put it, in your video titled The End of Battle for Neighborville?
I think I might have slightly misworded it, because they were obviously still working on some gameplay elements, but it's about sort of the focus. Like, there was, in the early days, there was so much more focus on getting the gameplay side of it right. And, there's all these things coming out. I think for TV Head and Wildflower, as far as I'm aware, you can only play them in like weekly modes at the moment, but I think they'll eventually come to the game. And I think when they do, I wouldn't be surprised to see them either put behind a paywall or put on a prize map or something like that. And just in general, how the gameplay developed over time, like the focus very much came away from balance patches and new content and stuff like that, and it was more on, okay, we're just going to shove a load of new outfits in Rux, we're going to do bundles, we're going to let you buy the end of prize map costumes off Rux if you don't get them. And it's sort of, eventually it just came down to, oh, this has been data mined and that's been data mined, and then you never hear about it again.
How do you feel about the wider influence you've had on the PvZ community? PopCap even seemingly named a costume in your honor. Do you think your influence caused more YouTubers to shift towards a more heavily edited video style?
I still think that was a coincidence, personally, but maybe it wasn't. But I don't really know if I've like had much of an influence, because I don't often check around to see like how things have changed with what I do. I just kind of, come do my thing and then go. But it's just, things have changed, and like I've seen like the way that other creators do things has changed a little bit as well. But I don't necessarily think that's all come from me. It can come from a lot of places. Like my content's changed quite a lot, and the way I do things has changed quite a lot. And that's because I take inspiration from like loads of different people. Like I'll see styles and practices of something that I think are good, and I'll think like, how can I put my own spin on that? So I may have had an influence, but it's not something I'm just going to sit and necessarily take all the credit for.
We also asked each participant some of the same general questions on top of the others. These were their answers. What are your best memories making content with the series?
Just the best moments I've pretty much remember is me trying to accumulate a good Vanquish streak in God of War 1 mostly, and then some of the time in God of War 2, trying to get as many kills as possible, but at the same time you need to play kind of conservatively. So yeah, doing like that cost benefit analysis, risk taking and stuff like that, and the constant stress of, someone might go out of their way to target you because, you're basically destroying them in the game, like they're like 0-7 against you. And yeah, those are pretty much like the best times that I remember making content. It was just so much fun, and yeah.
God, there's so much. But I have to say, my favorite memories was me on PlayStation 4 in the beginning, doing mini games with my fans. I don't know what it was. It was so amazing to just talk with the fans in a mini game and have fun battling each other. Love those memories. And then also probably some collabs with some people, probably know who, Cam, all of them. Those were fun too. We had a good laugh, I would have to say.
Oh gosh, there's honestly been so many. Probably one of the best moments, and possibly because I'm a small YouTuber, was when we did the very first stream where we did well, I suppose I don't know if it was a glitch, but how you can get multiple you can fill up a Giddy Park lobby with people who actually join you, and then they leave the group, and then they remain in your server. And I think just the fact there were so many people in there, and we did Redhead Says, and I was saying, oh, everybody be Rose, and then it was just this really sort of nice moment that we'd never done before, and we got so many subs in, and they could play together, and we're all there, and we're all having this really good time.
Battle for Neverville's launch for sure, because that was when I first got to upload high quality music on a new game's release, and it's always great to have amazing quality music available for people to hear instead of having to deal with weird in-game recorded versions.
Well, I guess, obviously traveling to Seattle to meet, the PopCap guys was a great memory, but specifically just kind of making content and covering the games, I had a great time playing all the games, and it's really cool to see just like the creativity that goes into the game, and of course, finally getting the mushroom class in the form of Nightcap in Battle for Neighborville was a highlight for me because I was like always wanting a mushroom class. I'm like, where's the mushroom class? And they didn't put one in Garden Warfare 2, and so when they finally did it in Battle for Neighborville, like I was like, yes, finally a mushroom class, finally. so that was definitely one of the highlights, and then just in general, just seeing, you know, all the cool things that they put in, not just the multiplayer not just the multiplayer maps and the multiplayer modes, but also like kind of the more story-based modes, especially in Garden Warfare 2, and then Battle for Neighborville was huge. Just to see all that creativity poured into those modes and the campaigns was really cool to see play out as I was making the content, because most of it was all a surprise to me. So that was really, really cool and fun and rewarding as a player and content creator.
I guess I kind of alluded to it with, Garden Warfare 2, Trials and Nomus, that sort of era when the DLC was really in its prime. Like, I was focusing on being quick, and I just had so much fun, especially with the boss hunts. That was probably my most enjoyable time. I think Koopa was playing with us at the time. It was the first boss hunt. We were playing against the Sasquatch on crazy difficulty, and I think we were one of the first to figure out the strat with like Armor Chomper, and I'm sure there's a better strategy now, but it was such a cool time figuring that all out and messaging each other to know how to solve the puzzles. That was really the best time, because I think that the game really had a lot of depth in that moment, especially. That was really the best time, because I think that was in the channel did really, really well, and I think that's when it really jumped up. I just liked it because of how much there was to do, how much there was to talk about, and I guess how much people wanted help with it. So that was for that like period of, I think, late 2016, early 2017 were probably the most enjoyable time. Even when Neighborville first came out, I did actually quite enjoy it. I liked the PvE a lot, so I enjoyed it with that. I wasn't making videos during Garden Warfare 1, so... but I've been recently uploading PS3 gameplay. That's been fun. I went back and played that, and that was a really good, nice throwback. If I had to pick like one moment, it was probably the boss hunts, the Sasquatch, and was it Spooky Squash? Because no one knew how to do that as well. That's probably it.
I would say my best memories with the series. I'm probably going to go back to my early days here. I think when GW1 came out, when all the teasers came out and you had little snippets, I loved like speculating that stuff, and everyone was like so hyped and everything like that. That was good. I also think that when I did the PvZ birthday, for the first birthday anniversary for Garden Warfare 1, I did like a special video, so I asked loads of people if they could do like a recording of themselves saying happy birthday and stuff like that. I worked on that for so long on this god-awful laptop, and that took so long. It had many crashes because there was a lot of editing in that for at the time. It'd be easy on my PC now, but back then it was very, very hard. That was one which I was very proud of.
I think when I first started my channel, I was doing Garden Warfare 2 stuff with friends and just making each other laugh and just having fun with the game. Like, for example, us going as chompers and just ruining the other team's fun just by constantly eating people or spawn camping them. This happened both in Garden Warfare 1 and Garden Warfare 2, by the way. But I think what I did, like, that's where the enjoyment of Plants vs. Zombies came from, is just hanging out with different people. And I think that's what sparked interest from other people into my channel because of those funny moments. And I think after that, it sort of evolved over time, which related to like other content from the Plants vs. Zombies community. But I would really love to eventually go back to the days where I would just play Garden Warfare 2 and just make jokes and crack laughs with friends. I think, especially during the days of Boss Hunt, those were probably one of the best, like, hence the Team Torchwood videos. Those were included on just having fun with people and just cracking jokes. I think that's definitely the golden age of me playing Plants vs. Zombies.
The best content, I got multiple meetups, streaming, the funny moments. I'm going to start with the meetups. So I've already answered. The meetups was something huge, and a lot of people wanted it. And I tried so hard to, arrange the meetups. This was when I was still like in uni and everything. So I was just like, had to arrange the time. The time was the important part because I want to make sure that everyone gets involved. It's quite hard. I don't want like people in like different time zones very early in the morning, but there's not much I can do about it. So most of my meetups were kind of like in the nighttime in like Europe because it was quite, the way I saw it was quite a good time.
Really, just I think probably most of GW2, to be honest. Just coming up with all the different series that I've done in that, covering the new DLCs, new characters that have come out. So I wasn't really around for GW1, so I missed that life cycle. I came in like right at the end of that life cycle, but I had a great time covering all of it with GW2. BFN didn't quite deliver the same experience though, I didn't think.
With the recent news of BFN's content updates ceasing not even a year in, what do you think the main reason for Battle for Neighborville failing was? If you believe it failed at all.
I don't really have the numbers, but I think it's due to the shrinking player base, which is my theory on why they added AI. They added AI recently because I know they implemented the 8v8, and that put off a lot of players. Like, even I stopped playing when they implemented the 8v8. And then when they changed it back to a 12v12, I'm assuming they didn't really grab all the players back. So then in turn, they basically implemented AIs, and AIs might have pushed it may have pushed people further away from the game. So I think they just saw their player base bleed largely, and they just thought, hey, it's not really worth it. Let's just cut our losses here. That's my theory. I really don't know if there's like any, there's any charts like on Steam where it shows you like how many concurrent players they are, what's the maximum amount of players the game ever had, like the dates of it and stuff like that. But I'm assuming, they were bleeding players by the day, so they just kind of cut their losses right then and there.
I would probably say, I don't want to be that guy, but I think a lot of the hate kind of brought them down. I would say a lot of the hate, but over the months of the hate, they probably realized they also weren't making that much money off of the game, so that's why it was shut down, in my opinion.
The main reason for it, I felt, was this sort of misunderstanding, and I don't know whether it was because of changes on the dev team or other things, but it was almost this lack of understanding what made the previous game good, what were the main parts of it that were good. And like I said, like, there was almost no sort of meeting where they went, okay, let's have a look at what worked really well. What do people really love from Garden Warfare 2? There were simple things like you were able to choose where you would put your Graven-Matic or the Gardenator. And suddenly you only had one spot. And there were just loads of little changes that didn't seem to make sense. But I think also what impacted this was this sort of what happened with BFN. It sort of became, there was kind of just this sort of hate around it, and it was very easy for a lot of people to just jump on it and say, oh, Garden Warfare 2 is better, which, for a lot of people that is. I'm not saying, people, there are significant differences between the game, but I think this sort of negativity that surrounded the game almost was no, I wouldn't say like completely unfair, but if you get what I mean, it sort of impacted it, and suddenly new people coming to the game were like, oh god, there's all this.
I think the switch to live service is what ultimately led to the death of the game, because they could not handle pushing out updates, keeping people interested in their time of doing live service. They could not handle it.
Well, I guess, they supported the game with new content for about a year total, and they've said they're not going to make any more new content. But they're going to continue supporting the game by kind of rotating out the old content and keeping the servers up and running, as they've done with the previous games, Garden Warfare 1 and 2. I think the life cycle of Battle for Neighborville, though, is a lot shorter. And so what it would come down to overall, it must be just from a financial perspective, it must not be getting the type of income or the type of money, must not be generating the type of money that EA wants it to. And EA has several different properties to look at, other than PvZ content or other than PvZ games. And so they probably are just like, well, this one's either it's not profitable anymore or it's not making as much as some of the other games. Thus, we're going to de-emphasize development efforts on Battle for Neighborville. Maybe even put them in other games away from Plants vs. Zombies, or maybe even, work on another Plants vs. Zombies in the future, maybe just put on a hiatus for a while. It's really hard to say, what their main reason is, but it must come down to money, because if it were, super profitable, they would just keep doing it for as long as they could. And then the question then kind of becomes, well, why do I think it wasn't making a ton of money, or why do I think, that they're kind of stopping support for it. And, I thought a lot about that, because I know that one of the complaints in the community is that it wasn't marketed very well, especially at the beginning. And I think they could have done better with marketing of the game. It was almost like a surprise release in a way. They for a while, I thought that trailer that they did with Patrick Stewart was like great marketing, but that was like the only instance of that. So there was probably a struggle with how much budget do they allocate to a game, like this. They might just they have several games out there. They might just want the game to kind of thrive on its own without having to market it too much. But another thing that I thought about is that there's just a lot of competition right now with shooters and in general. And you have a lot of free-to-play shooters out there that it's competing with, because it had a price point that was not free. So you had to, put money up front to even play it. But I think there's also a lot of competition with itself. And that's especially true on the PC. I don't know that there's enough players on the PC platform to support 3 Plants vs. Zombies games, because when Garden Warfare 2 came out, a lot of people were still in Garden Warfare 1, and they didn't make the move immediately over to Garden Warfare 2, and so that kind of divided the potential player base there. And, I, as a Garden Warfare 2 player, I kind of wanted to move on from Garden Warfare 1. I wanted to play the new content, and, I wanted more and more people just to come over to Garden Warfare 2 so that we had a larger player base. But I felt that the player base on the PC was pretty good for Garden Warfare 2. And then when Battle for Neighborville came out, people moved over, but eventually it was like, hey, I want more people to move over to Battle for Neighborville, but yet I understand that a lot of people are already satisfied with Garden Warfare 2, or they've already invested a lot of money in Garden Warfare 2. They don't want to make the leap, put more money into a brand new game. And so I think they kind of divided their own player base across 3 separate games. And of course, if they would have shut down Garden Warfare 1 or Garden Warfare 2 servers, that would have just outraged the community. So that was not going to be a viable option. And apparently it wasn't viable for them to make it free either. So I think it was just kind of an instance where they were competing with a lot of different shooters, but also competing with themselves in a lot of ways.
I think it had an identity crisis. I think Garden Warfare 1 was so great, and it was so easy to explain to my friends who were interested in playing it. It took a game that we'd all played on our iPads and iPod Touches and maybe even on our old computers, and it gave it scale. It was 2D the whole time, and then having a massive gargantua or a big yeti running around, seeing the plants walk about. I think that in itself, it was like Plants vs. Zombies in 3D, and you could explain that really easily. All my friends played Garden Warfare 1. A lot of them made the switch to Garden Warfare 2. Not a single one played Battle for Neighborville. Majority of them never knew it even came out. I think the name is too much of a tongue twister to explain. I think as a fan looking in, you see Garden Warfare 2 with like 100 plus playable characters, all this DLC and content, and you look at Neighborville, there's no variance, and explain that I guess lack to other people, I guess deters them from it. That's the first point. Like it's a big thing to come down. A big thing to think about. That's the main point. I think it didn't have an identity or a really strong incentive to pick it up and play it, for both new players and for people who are already enjoying Garden Warfare 2. Yeah, it's a big question. I could keep going for a while. How long do we have? Yeah, okay, this is main reason. I think that's the main reason.
Failing as in why they're not doing any more content? I feel the reason for that is not many people are playing the game.
I think it was the fault of the developers specifically, because we have given constructive criticism to Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville as a community, and the developers would refuse to listen and to change details about it. They have done, but it would be sort of too little, too late. There would one fix of a bug would lead to so many other bugs being unleashed. Now, I'm not saying it would be their fault, perhaps, but I think in the beginning, they took a lot of directions that they really shouldn't have taken. Like for example, they called it Battle for Neighborville when Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare already was doing so well. If they made a Garden Warfare 3, I think that would have gotten a lot more attention. Like, the new character classes would be fine if they would just, I guess, if they just added a little more promotion towards it. But I think the title itself, calling it Battle for Neighborville instead of Garden Warfare 3, and without the character variants, really turned a lot of people off in the beginning. So I think that's why a lot of people didn't buy Battle for Neighborville at the time. But I think my best guess is just if it's broke, don't fix it. And that's exactly like they tried to fix something that wasn't broken in the beginning. But I tried to give them the benefit of the doubt. I thought the game was going to get better. But like when new content started slowly showing up, like I'm going to give Battle Arena a specific example. Ranked Battle Arena specifically. It took them 6 months to create a ranking system in Battle for Neighborville, which it did have a lot of potential at the time, but I think they put it in a little too late to the part where like no one really like was interested in it. And even just playing it itself just had too many bugs. For example, wins didn't count, and there would be a lot of times where I think the game would crash, or there would just be unfair teammates, or like just matchmaking is just atrocious. So like that was pretty much Battle Arena was a mess, and it didn't even last more than 2 seasons, may I add. And I think what happened was just like, as a whole, PopCap just doesn't listen to their community. We just give them constructive criticism over the years. There's so many videos on the internet saying how Battle for Neighborville could do much better, but they didn't take they didn't take the criticism that we were expecting. And I think it's important to listen to the community, but I think that they work for a giant corporation. And my best belief is that nowadays companies don't care about their products, but they only care about money. So I think that's exactly the reason why they would be more concerned about microtransactions and patching prize bulb exploits, because that would prevent them from making more money rather than fixing a regular game bug that's like breaking the game, perhaps, which I was really upset about, and which is a really big reason why I dislike Battle for Neighborville today.
Well, there was a lot of reasons. It really was just a very rocky game, I would say. Just like so many things to discuss about the game. I really did have passion for the game. I know the game was definitely different from the God of Warfare series, but I still had that faith. So I'd say the main reason the game kind of failed was the lack of updates, honestly. It's just that the developers was just... I didn't really like the idea of just monthly updates. I feel like the game desperately needed like weekly updates or something. The BFN did not deserve a monthly update, because if one update doesn't really fix the bugs or changes anything, then it's going to impact the game throughout the months, and I feel like that's what they suffered the most.
For me, I always looked at it like the game screamed to me that they tried to just make it something that the previous games wasn't. Like it felt like they were trying to make it mainstream, like so many similarities with games like Overwatch and stuff like that. It just looked a little bit like they'd seen the success of other games like that and thought, well, if we do something, similar to that, maybe we could, have that same sort of success, and we can take the popularity of it to the next level. And I just think as a result of that, they made too many changes that weren't good for the game, and just things that no one ever asked for, really. Like you said earlier, they did do some good things, but it wasn't so much a different game. It felt like you're playing a completely different franchise altogether. And I think one of the worst things, was the launch. Like, it was so buggy and messy at launch. It felt really unfinished. And sort of I'd argue even to this day, it still feels like there could be a lot more to it. And it's just, I think the fact that it's taken them like a whole year just to get things like, private match into the game. When we were first playing it, there was only one mode, and it really felt like there wasn't enough to it.
What do you think could have been done differently, if anything?
I think they could have just made it, maybe not even releasing BFN in the first place, because right now it just feels like they're just releasing, like, it feels like a Call of Duty where they're just releasing not the same game, but they're just frequently releasing iterations of the PvZ shooters. And we really don't have the player base to be doing that, because let's say on Call of Duty, your friends have the latest version of Call of Duty, they're going to like galvanize you to essentially get it. And, you have the fear of missing out. Like, okay, all my friends are playing Call of Duty, I need to get it so I can play with them. In PvZ, there's no incentive like that. It doesn't have the player base to be doing that. So I think not releasing BFN in the first place would have been good. But something they could have done differently is maybe just called it God of Warfare 3 and, include variants, because I know that put off a lot of players, the lack of variants. That was a huge, huge thing. And the whole sprinting system put a lot of people it pushed away a lot of people. And the very slow patch balances, that's another big thing that God of Warfare always suffered from. It's just the time it takes to fix things, to fix broken characters and whatnot.
I would say I would have done to make it better was new items in Vorotron with players with a lot of coins. Like I said before, with the Rux problem, I wanted them with people with a lot of coins that finished the Vorotron. They can have some new cosmetics and stuff instead of just paying money for the game. And I would probably say I wanted more content. I was hoping for more content. It felt very stale, I would say. And that's one thing I thought BFN failed, was the lack of content.
If anything, I think more content quicker. I think if they'd have kept the content coming a bit more, it would have kept the interest.
So what they could have done differently is either not make Battle for Neverville, instead make Garden Warfare 3, or make Battle for Neverville and have better listen to the community. Because there was definitely some people complaining in the community, I think you would know this, about drop-off. Yeah, one of the devs just flat out ignored it and seemed to joke about it.
Well, what I think what could have been done differently, especially for the PC market, is adding crossplay. I kept asking them, like, please add crossplay or at least cross saves, because I was wanting to move from the PC to console if I could, but if without cross save, I couldn't bring my characters that I've already worked up, and I didn't want to grind through that again. So yeah, if they would have added crossplay, it would have allowed all the consoles and the PC to share a player base, and then we could have had full matches. We could have had less wait time. We could have had more fair and balanced games. So that's what I would have done differently. I would have added, crossplay for sure to Battle for Neighborville, but maybe next game if there ever is one.
I think the first, because I had a unique position. I got to play Battle for Neighborville early at Gamescom. Like, it was a huge moment for me when all I was doing was uploading no commentary gameplay, and I was invited to be flown to the other side of the world to play the game and meet people. And I enjoyed the game a lot when I was playing it. I remember being a little concerned there weren't variants, but I saw the upgrades and I thought that could be a bit more elaborate. I think repetition is a huge error with the game. A lot of the characters, obviously they look different and function differently, but the projectiles they shoot are very similar. I think that a lot of the characters in the earlier games, especially in Garden Warfare 1, they all had a really distinct way of playing them. I think, for example, the cactus had a lot of weight to it when you shot. The All-Star, had a really clunky gun. The Foot Soldier, was a bit more fluid. The Engineer, the concrete launcher, it felt, I don't know, the game felt better to play. I always thought with the upgrades, how they could have made it, I guess, more different to players, I guess to make the upgrades more significant, I always thought it'd be cool if the upgrades were the variants themselves. Like it could be a visual thing. Like if you have, let's say, an extended magazine upgrade for the foot soldier, you'd actually be able to see that on the gun itself. If you have a zoom upgrade for the cactus, it'd look like the camo cactus in Garden Warfare 2 rather than Garden Warfare 1. That's what I would have mainly done different if I was purely talking about gameplay. Just make the upgrades, I guess, feel more impactful in the game. Because when I was playing with the upgrades, I just chucked on the experience booster just so I'd get to the master rank quickly. And then maybe, what was the one that makes you do more damage after a few eliminations? I think that system especially could have really saved the game if it was more well developed, more significant. That's what I would have done differently.
So I think straight off the bat, the way they announced and promoted the game wasn't good. Like the previous games, they announced E3 the year before, released, like teasers and things up leading to the release date. This game was instantly like, boom, go play it. And, there's some people that was massive fans of PvZ Garden Warfare 1 and 2. And then 5-6 months later, they're like, oh, wait, there's BFN Failed? I didn't know there was a third shooter. And they were massive fans of the previous franchise. So even massive fans, some of them still didn't even know that a new game came out. So I think straight away, the way they announced the game and things like that probably lowered sales as an initial thing. Obviously, the game would still be made the same. So post-launch, that definitely wouldn't have changed where the game was. But as far as sales at launch, that definitely didn't help. And then post-launch, I feel like the replayability is one of the factors why people probably stop playing the game. No variants in the game. Compared to Garden Warfare 2, there's 120 different characters. You could play 120 different games and each one would feel different. You play the game, you unlock sticker packs to get a new character. You had something to aim for to get new characters, which kept people playing. In this game, it was like, boom, all the characters are already available. Go play them all. And then once you play the foot soldier once, doesn't matter what upgrade you put on the foot soldier, when you go into another game, it still feels like the same character. So the replayability there was the same. So a few months maybe after launch, people are dropping off like, I'm just playing the same characters over and over again. And then I don't think COVID helped as well. I feel like people working from home since like April, maybe they wasn't able to do the updates as well as they should have done or as quick as they should have done. So I think COVID probably is one factor which has not helped. And that's not just PvZ, that's probably a lot of game industries in general. I don't think it's helped them either. I think it would have been good if they would have done like the P shooter. Okay, because they said that they didn't have variants in their grasp. But instead of doing it as like a totally new class, if they had upgrades where you had the P shooter and you could add an upgrade on which made like a fire upgrade or an ice upgrade, yeah, it still is a variant, but then you're kind of customizing them through upgrades instead. That would have been cool. And you could mix and mash upgrades to try and change them. Abilities, I don't know why they didn't add any new abilities in the game either, because even just changing a sombrero beam bomb to a normal chiller beam bomb, that changes how you're going to play the P shooter. Like it means that you can be more aggressive with, well, not more aggressive, but if you was playing turf takeover and you was defending an objective, that sombrero beam bomb's going to cover a wider area, so you can be less accurate with it, and it's going to explode more. So just things like that can make a difference. So I don't know why they didn't do that as well. As far as being successful, I feel like if they would have took GW2, looking at Battlefield Neighborville now, of what it's like and people's opinions on it, obviously you're saying like what if and stuff like that, but I think if they would have took GW2, evolved onto that, done the single player from Battlefield Neighborville, added more variants, added more classes, people probably would have played it more and it probably would have been more successful. Even though it's just kind of like adding onto a previous game and people might be like, oh, it's just the same thing with more, I still feel like people would have played it more and liked it better.
Well, I would listen to the community a lot more. Like, I know Plants vs. Zombies was a lot active on Twitter, especially with the developers. And granted, there are some developers that would try their best to take care of the bugs, like John Lenusco. But eventually, like, it got to the point where bugs led to more bugs. I think it would take some time for them to investigate what exactly happened with that and try to fix the bugs as soon as possible. It doesn't make sense how they try and fix one bug, which leads to another bug that comes out of nowhere. I think that it really doesn't make sense to me, because if it was fine before, how is it not doing well like now? Like, there are so many times where Battle for Neighborville had bugs in the game, and I don't think I've ever I never turned on Battle for Neighborville and did not experience one bug or another bug that affected gameplay, which is why I got so upset. But I would try to listen more to the community and take more constructive criticism. Like, do things that would try to attract the audience if you want to promote the game a little bit more. But I think a big mistake on that is they focused a little too much on content updates, and they cared very little about pre-existing bugs that were already in the game, perhaps.
I do have quite a couple of stuff. Honestly, the Rainbow Star earnings. It's very slow earning Rainbow Stars from the weekly mode. I was not really happy. I know what they were doing with Rooks, but honestly, the fact that it's gonna take someone 3 months or 2 months getting a legendary skin is probably the most stupidest thing I've ever heard. I really don't think they need to grind that long to get a legendary skin. One legendary skin from Rooks, like, it's stupid. You're not getting a lot of Rainbow Stars, so I feel like they need to do something about it. And I really wish they would change something about it. It probably takes a player like a good 2 weeks just to get a legendary skin, which, I mean, that'll be fair, because there is a lot of stuff in the Rooks anyway. Another thing, more daily tasks. I mean, 2 daily tasks was all right. I mean, currently right now, one daily task is giving out 2 bulbs, which I'm quite happy about. But honestly, I'd say having probably the maximum, like, 3 daily tasks or 4 daily tasks will probably be fine. Worthy items for weekly character. This is another one that I've noted down. The weekly character rewards, just getting like a hat or something, I did not really like that. I mean, you're just grinding out for like a limited edition kind of costume or just a hat or something, which, I mean, yeah, it looks cool. It's limited edition kind of thing. You only got it for a bit. And honestly, I would say that they probably could have changed it to like Rainbow Stars. That'll definitely be much more worth it, much more worth a grind. And probably some bulbs if they can throw it in there. I think that'll be definitely much more like rewarding.
I think if I look at the game now, I think if it had been released around about now in the state it is now, I think it could have done a lot better. I think maybe it could have, I mean, I'm not an expert, but I think maybe it could have sat in development for maybe another year. Because it just, it felt very rushed, I think. And I certainly think if they, brought it out now, with Ranked Battle Arena, with Private Match, with all the other stuff, with, not necessarily with a few extra characters, but bring those in, like, fairly quickly, I think it would have had a much better start, and then that could have set it up to do better in the long term, I think.
Do you see the cancellation of Battle for Neighborville in a different light to the initial cancellation of Garden Warfare 2? If yes, what makes these similar events different in your eyes?
Yeah, I do see in a different light. Garden Warfare 2 was like, I don't know, I guess they cared about it more. I have no idea. Like, I really couldn't answer that question. Maybe they had like different devs, different community managers. I'm not really that big into the PvZ community. Like, you don't see me a lot on the forums, or you don't see me like communicating a lot. So I really don't know. I really don't know the answer to that question. I think so. Like, give or take. Yeah, I do see in a slightly different light. But
well, I would say yes. And what makes it different is BFN kind of was canceled a lot sooner than Garden Warfare 2, in my opinion. And the fact of that kind of scares me for future shooters if it's ever going to come. With Garden Warfare 2, we kind of had a feeling that there was going to maybe possibly be another shooter with all the leaks we had over the years and stuff. But BFN kind of just shut down out of nowhere. And that doesn't show a good sign for the future of PvZ, in my opinion.
I would say that it's definitely different because Battle for Neighborville was always a game that I was hoping would be the best game ever, and of course it wasn't. So by the time that I'd kind of had a clear picture that Cancellation was coming, which was back in July, I'd already seen it in a different light since April, which is when I began theorizing that it would not make it past October. And I have seen it in a different light for sure, because it's just very different in the case where Garden Warfare 2 felt finished when it ended. Battle for Neighborville has Iceberg Lettuce in the files, and all those characters that are supposed to come that did not come in Op Space 3. All that stuff's not coming now, which is very terrible for the people that enjoy Battle for Neighborville. They don't get to get all that content that they were hoping for.
Well, I do see them in a different light, in the fact that, to my knowledge, they kind of exhausted all of the Garden Warfare 2 content that they had. They already released a bunch of the characters and subclasses that they had for Garden Warfare 2, according to my best knowledge. For Battle for Neighborville, it feels a little different, though, because we've seen leaks on Reddit of characters that were planned, and, they released one additional character. This is a game without subclasses, and so the promise was that, well, instead of subclasses, we're just going to have a bunch of new characters, and that way it'll keep it fresh and interesting. But they only released one additional character, which was the Wizard. And so, I was looking forward to whoever the character might be on the plant side to help, balance that out. And I was looking forward to, potentially like months of new characters, or seasons of new characters, or however they did it. But we only got the one new character, and then, now it's canceled. We were lucky to get a couple new maps. I was really looking forward to more maps because I thought it launched without enough maps. But we got a couple new maps, and I was glad for that. But I was really looking forward, especially due to the lack of subclasses, I was really looking forward to having a bunch more characters. So it really does feel like a Cancellation in the middle of development, as opposed to Garden Warfare 2 felt like the development was done, and they were already moving on to the next game. And but this one feels more like they did not move on to the next game. They were still working on this game, and then it was kind of canceled in the middle of the development cycle. And I think that's evidenced by the fact that Justin Weeb has moved on away from Plants vs Zombies, and and we saw the leaks that there's potentially a few new characters that could have seen the light of the day that are now not going to.
I remember being puzzled when Garden Warfare 2 stopped releasing content, because I thought there were a lot of people playing it. My videos were getting a lot of views, and I remember just being puzzled. I think it's no secret that Neighborville hasn't performed as strongly. So, I hate to say I'm less optimistic now. I think the game has a ton of potential. There's no doubt with that. But I just think that the foundation of Garden Warfare 2 is better than what Battle for Neighborville is. So I see them differently in regards to, I always thought Garden Warfare 2 could go further. I felt like there were variants that could be made. I felt like there were maps that still could be made, and they could elaborate further on all the gnome content. I guess that, yeah, with Neighborville, I don't know what they could do next. Aside from adding new characters, and adding new characters, I guess, costs a lot more than creating a new variant. Yeah, I'm less hopeful.
I don't think we're going to get another PvZ Shooter after this, honestly. I think that's the end. That's just my honest opinion. From like they announced it, but it was such a small, subtle announcement in that article. It was like, oh, this is the new update, last content update, and then that was it. Like, there was no big announcement. Which, did they do that for the previous games? I can't remember if they did or not. Like, Justin Weeb isn't working for PvZ anymore, and I know obviously he's not. He was the creative director for GW1, GW2, and Battle for Neighborville. He's not working at PopCap anymore. Sean Laker, he's not working at PopCap anymore. So that's two. Obviously, the team isn't just two people, and they are just people that you see more on the social media side of things, or the face of things, and there's a lot more people that work behind it. But right there, those are probably two of the most known names for Plants vs Zombies, if not the two most known. and neither of them are now working on PvZ, which is it kind of like, oh, we're not getting another game now, let's jump ship and get another job? Or is it generally, like Justin Weeb said, he wanted a new challenge, so he's moved on to something else, you know? I don't know.
So, although Garden Warfare 2 did stop updating a couple years back, it still was doing a lot well for the community because I think the gameplay is a lot better in quality than it is in Battle for Neighborville. Battle for Neighborville wasn't even doing so well like back when they were trying to update the game and try and keep it as relevant as possible. And especially due to the fact like Garden Warfare 2, more people were aware of it. There was a lot more hype and a lot more players in the game. And there were less bugs that affected gameplay. Whatever bug was in Garden Warfare 2, they patched and they fixed. And today, I can play a game of Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2 without anything wrong with the gameplay or anything that is affecting gameplay. Battle for Neighborville to this day, it still has so many things wrong, even to the fact where they just canceled the game and like it would still be considered unplayable. So I think that would probably be the reason why Garden Warfare 2, even though it hasn't been updated years, is doing much better than an active like game that was trying to update content at the time, like Battle for Neighborville. The population of Garden Warfare 2 was still a lot more to this day.
Personally, I feel like the cancellation of BFN was poor than Garden Warfare 2. Like, on Garden Warfare 2, it was different because the game was actually in a perfect state. Like, everything was going fine balancing-wise. Everything was okay. I know Electro P and the Detonation characters were definitely annoying. But other than that, everything was pretty alright with the game. I mean, I know everyone's playing it today, so there's not much to say about that. So the game was pretty much fine when we got the final update. I was pretty happy for them to stop. I was a bit annoyed because the game only had like a year of update. I know everyone was annoyed, but I mean, when they closed it off, I mean, it was quite an alright thing to do because the game was still in a perfect state. It was still in like edition, you know. There was a few bugs, but it was still playable for Garden Warfare 2. For BFN, it was the complete opposite. There were so many bugs, and it's not playable.
I think they feel quite different to me because I remember when Garden Warfare 2 first had the support cut, but when I wasn't really that upset when it happened because I sort of felt like, you know, we've had multiple DLCs, new characters, new maps, you know, lots of balance patches made to the game. It felt like the game had a good life cycle, and it felt like they were cutting support because it was a bit like, you know, what else have we got left to do now? Whereas BFN felt a lot more like it just wasn't something worth investing in for the future, despite the fact they had a lot of plans for it still. So I think the Garden Warfare 2 cancellation actually just felt like it felt like more natural causes, I guess.
How much appeal do you think the different games have as YouTube content?
Yeah, so BFN, I did get quite a bit of comments when I first started uploading it saying, oh, this game is not fun. This game doesn't have the variants anymore. You know, I don't like the new characters. So people are a lot more receptive to it. Garden Warfare 2, I barely got any comments about Garden Warfare 1 being better. And for Garden Warfare 2, I think that's where I got the most viewers on average for my for my turf takeover sessions. That's what I usually call them, just flat out, just me playing the game. I got the most viewers on that. I think I got a couple of thousand viewers on each of those videos compared to BFN, where I'm pulling a few hundred.
I would say Garden Warfare 2 has a lot more appeal for my fans in general. But with BFN, for the past probably 4 months, I was getting a lot of people that were new to the channel liking my BFN content. But all in general, I would say Garden Warfare 2 has a lot more appeal than BFN.
I think this is a fairly straightforward one. Garden Warfare 2 still seems to be getting a a lot of attention, even considering how old it is. There's a lot of things still coming out for that. I think the mods have helped in my personal case. But yeah, I think it has been clear that Garden Warfare 2 still has a lot of attention.
I would say that they definitely have a lot of appeal, especially for music. The music in all the games is pretty good. I would go to say amazing in some cases. And of course, as music, they all have different appeals. Everyone likes Garden Warfare 2's music, and everyone likes Battle for Neighborville's music, and everyone has nostalgia for Garden Warfare 1's music. And of course, as normal YouTube content, they definitely have appeal because there's lots of insane things that happen in them. All sorts of things that can be done. There's definitely videos that you can do, especially for Garden Warfare 2, I'd say. Not so much Battle for Neighborville. I don't think it has as lot of appeal as content.
Well, I mean, for my channel, quite a lot of appeal. The cycle for any game I cover typically goes, when the game is new and fresh, it gets more views than later on. And so I think that what happened with Battle for Neighborville and why it got fewer views on my channel is because there were just fewer types of content to cover. Like I could have a ton of episodes for Garden Warfare 1 and 2 because there was like dozens of different subclasses. I could focus on each subclass. For this, there really wasn't. So I had to kind of come up with my own ideas and try to, instead of covering, new subclasses, I would just be primarily covering just some, customizations, which don't really add anything new to the game other than visually. But so I struggle a little bit with making new content. They did release new stuff like about once a month, and that kind of is how I started releasing videos. It was about once a month at that point. But yeah, so, and in general, but I think for the viewer, there was a lot of appeal. But I think, Garden Warfare 1 was a lot fresher and newer. And frankly, Garden Warfare 1 did a lot of stuff before, even like Overwatch did things, and so Garden Warfare 1 was truly original, and Garden Warfare 2 built off of that, and then Battle for Neighborville built off of that even further. But, at the time that Battle for Neighborville came out, we've already seen Garden Warfare 1, we've already seen Garden Warfare 2, so it's like, what new does it have? Well, it has like a few new characters, has new maps, it has a bigger, more expansive story, and all that stuff I think did really well on my channel. But once I explored all that, it was like, well, I'll keep up with the new content. I'll showcase the new maps, the new modes and stuff. But there wasn't as much content in terms of variety for me to cover once I already explored the base game, and I was just kind of waiting on them to release new stuff. And their cycle wasn't as quick as a lot of games. Like Fortnite has new stuff like almost every day, it seems. but this one was a little bit slower on release, and so I was really looking forward to the new characters. But those never materialized.
Really stepping back to Garden Warfare 1, I think everyone wanted to watch that game because it was a 3D version of Plants vs. Zombies. The same point as before. I think it was just so cool to see a 2D space be made 3D with such scale. It was new, it was cool. I think everyone enjoyed Garden Warfare 1. Garden Warfare 2, it just had so much stuff to do and so much content in the first place. Even unlocking all the characters was such a feat. I think it was more enjoyable to watch because the games were always different. As a no commentary channel, it was important that the gameplay was good and it was interesting to watch because I don't have my voice to carry it, right? So Neighborville, has always, unfortunately, always performed worse than Garden Warfare 2 because I just don't think it's as interesting to watch if you compare them both. So my best videos performing over time were just gameplay of all the variant characters, all the Chomper variants, for example. I think the lack of variety in the gameplay provides less incentive to want to watch it on YouTube because you playing it versus you watching someone else do so isn't that much different. Yeah, that's what comes to mind. I think Neighborville didn't necessarily add much new. The story was good, but there was already a story in Garden Warfare 2. I guess the elite bosses and garden ops were quite interesting, and those videos performed really well. And the more elaborate final bosses at the end of the PvE regions. I guess, yeah, if I think about the videos that performed well on my channel, they were the ones that were new content entirely, that hadn't existed in prior games. I think it was again just repeating things that people had already seen.
I would say that GW2 probably has the most content. It still has some single player quests in there. You got a lot of different characters and things that you can do. BFN, obviously you had your single player stuff. My locations of chests and gnomes did quite well, but out of the single player stuff, multiplayer, it's kind of doing the same thing over and over again. Pretty early on, like you do 21 videos each on a different character. Like apart from maybe mixing it up a little bit with playing with other people, you're kind of still doing the same content, right? Like it's not really any different. Whereas at least with Garden Warfare 2 at launch, I could do 20 videos on the single player stuff or however long it was, and then you could do some infinity time. But then I've also can do 120 videos on each with a different character variant, and then you had your updates coming out with different things there. And I feel like GW2 had a lot more, and I feel like this is weird to talk about as well, but I feel like Garden Warfare 1 post-launch content 1,000,000% outweighed the content we got post-launch for GW2 and BFN. Like Garden Warfare 1 had more content post-launch than any other game, which is weird because that's the first one. There was 4 or 5 maps made. There was 3 or 4 different game modes. The first update gave 24 new abilities. I think across Garden Warfare 1, we ended up getting 24 different characters. Compare that to what we got in Garden Warfare 2. We got, 8 characters maybe? A couple of maps and Trials and Omas. There wasn't really a whole lot in Garden Warfare 2, and then Battle for Neighborville, we got a few maps. I think we got more maps quicker than I expected as well, to be honest, but we got some maps. We got a change to ops. We got a new character, but we didn't really get a lot there as well. So I guess post-launch, probably Garden Warfare 1 had the most content for YouTube.
Well, it really depends on your audience. If more people like Garden Warfare 2 than Battle for Neighborville, the best guess is that more people will rather watch Garden Warfare 2. Granted, there are a lot of people, and my channel did grow because of Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville. But I think I'm going to stick to my point where more people preferred Garden Warfare 2 rather than Battle for Neighborville. It was a much more successful game. So I think that would be particularly the reason why that Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 2 gets a lot more views on YouTube rather than videos of Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville. It does. I don't think it really does. It also does depend on the time when you upload them. Like when Garden Warfare 2 was really hyped up, a lot more views were going out, showcasing different things. I can take ZackScott's channel as an example. When he would introduce the boss guy for Zombopolis, the giant robot guy, showcasing the DLC map. That got a lot more views than showcasing the medieval times map on Turf Takeover and Battle for Neighborville. Because I think more people, again, liked Garden Warfare 2. But I think what was I saying? I think that depending on the circumstances, I think Garden Warfare 2 was a much more quality game and more memorable. So I think that's why it does really well. I will give out the exception that one of the best Battle for Neighborville videos I ever did was ranking easiest to hardest elite boss battles in Battle for Neighborville, which I'm really grateful that it did so well. But I think that would be the only exception. Other than that, I think Garden Warfare 2 videos do a lot better than Battle for Neighborville.
Let me just see. I see BFN content right now, and what it was just pretty much just clickbait because it was definitely different from the Garden Warfare series. Every time I look on YouTube, BFN is just is BFN worth it? Is BFN cancelled? Why is BFN sucks? Why Garden Warfare 2 is better? It's just the same topic every time, and most of the videos that I see as well is like major bug fixes, a new XP exploit. It's just all this. I feel like people were just like trying to milk the game in a negative way, which I didn't really like seeing. There was some like YouTubers out there, smaller ones, that were making funny moments of the game, which was still fun to watch. I mean, I still watch some of it. I still love watching them. They're pretty cool. Yeah, there was a constant theme of just BFN versus Garden Warfare 2. It wasn't just on YouTube. I know it was on like everywhere. I don't know what started the whole theme, but every time I'm on Reddit or YouTube or something, I just see the same theme of just got BFN versus Garden Warfare 2. Honestly, I don't mind either game. I'd Garden Warfare 1 into it as well. I really don't mind any game in the series, honestly. But yeah, that's why I think of the whole content.
All the shooters I think have made for good content. I never really got much into the original games, but I think the shooters are very good because they're just sort of, pretty casual. I think shooters in general are quite good for content, at least for me anyway. But something like PvZ, where it's sort of, wacky, cartoony, it's I think it makes for good watching. And I also thought I quite enjoyed Heroes while I was posting that. Like, it didn't, last because I thought the game got a little bit too monetization heavy, and I thought, I didn't fancy emptying my whole bank account just to stay in the bloody Silver League. But I really liked the kind of strategy element to it, and I'm quite into card games like that, so I thought Heroes was quite good, and people seemed to enjoy it for the short time that I was doing it. But as far as the other ones go, I never really got into the original ones, and I haven't played PvZ 3, so I can't really say much on that either.
If there were a future for the PvZ shooters, do you think you would return to making content for them? What would you want from a hypothetical later installment?
Yes, definitely. Like, if they were to announce like another God of Warfare game, I'd probably buy it. Like, I would definitely buy it. So, if they do, like, I want them to take a small break from the game, like from developing stuff, and then maybe releasing the next installment in 2022. Maybe take like a breather, really think about it, and basically maybe release it to a point where it doesn't feel like it's being milked. But yeah, I want Podcast to just take some time, breathe, develop like God of Warfare 3, and this game will have, we'll pretty much have every single map from before. Maybe that's a bit too much, because in total I think we have 15 unique turf takeover maps across, all the 3 games. I want to see basically what they did in BFN with the customizations. They really did a good job with customizations. They went with, quality over quantity, which I'm a big fan of. I was not a fan of like the silver, the gold, the gem customizations in God of Warfare 2. That was just a lot of bloat. Let's see here. Anti-cheat. BFN has great anti-cheat. Yeah, I really like the prize maps, the monthly prize maps. I want them to bring that back. And I'd like more long-term support for the game, They could keep introducing maps down the line. I'd like to see all the variants from the previous games, even though that might be excessive to a certain point. I really like what they did with the upgrades, I guess, in this game. So yeah, what I want for God of Warfare 3 is a lot of, overlap from God of Warfare 2 and BFN.
With PvZ, I grew up with it since day one. I will always return to PvZ no matter what. If there's ever a new shooter or new game or anything. And if it does happen, I would say I would probably like some Garden Warfare 3.
I think the main issue PopCap have had is because some of their games have had so much success, they've kind of gone like, well, where do we go next? And this kind of comes to this innovating for innovating's sake. But I think there's lots of elements that BFN did bring that were different, that were received well, like the festivals, for example. So I think it's just sort of getting the right balance of the combination of things that we've already had. I think I would like to see a developed, even though BFN did develop on the story mode, I would like to see them go a bit further on that.
I would definitely be returning to uploading music of potential Garden Warfare 3 or BFN 2 if they decide to do that. I don't think they will, personally, but I would definitely return to uploading music, but I don't plan to like stop uploading PvZ Shooter stuff. Because back in like July, I uploaded a video on Garden Warfare 2 mods, and I definitely want to go back to doing that because I think that would be pretty interesting. Because there's definitely lots of things that can be done with modding that people are not aware of. I would want them to just go back to making Garden Warfare. There's no need to try and go overly over the top to get extra money because all of Battle for Neighborville's crucial changes, like removing variants, were done for cost sharing, which were basically there for monetization purposes. They should just return to making Garden Warfare, which is much simpler, has much more appeal, and they should definitely advertise the game instead of doing some weird surprise launch and then wondering why their game gets leaked or people can't wait.
Oh yeah, of course I will return. I love PvZ. I cover all things PvZ. I still play Plants vs Zombies 2. I don't want to comment on whether or not there's less effort that goes into PvZ 2. I don't know how much harder it is to add a character to that game versus Battle for Neighborville, for example. I would assume that Battle for Neighborville is a little bit harder. Like you have to have a lot more balancing because it's a multiplayer game. But they add like new plants and new zombies to Plants vs Zombies 2 even today. And it's much more frequent than the shooter games, and so I still cover Plants vs Zombies 2. It still does fairly well on my channel, and so and Plants vs Zombies 2 has been out I don't know how many years. So yeah, of course, if they have a new shooter game, I'll definitely cover it. If they decide to resume development of Battle for Neighborville out of the blue, I'll definitely cover that. And as far as like if they make another game, what would I want? And I think we'll get it. Is I would just want crossplay. If they wanted to return more towards the original, maybe they would do like a Garden Warfare 3. That'd be kind of cool to resurrect that name in a way. They kind of made it seem like they wanted Battle for Neighborville to kind of stand out on its own and be a totally different game. And I think it was smart to retitle it. Because if it were called Garden Warfare 3, but it didn't have subclasses, I think there would be a backlash. And so there was kind of a reasoning that they used for titling it Battle for Neighborville is like, well, we changed a lot about what makes Garden Warfare 1 and 2 Garden Warfare games. And so the retitle kind of changes expectations that players have. And so I think as long as they manage expectations with the next game, and either, if they bring back subclasses, if they bring back or if they go in a different route entirely and they do a totally different title change, I think I'm looking forward to whatever they do, and I think we'll get some of the big wishes, which I think would be crossplay for me. That's a big wish for me. I think we'll get it because I think moving forward, a lot of games are going to be doing crossplay. That seems to be the trend, and I think that's just going to be built into the development of any sort of multiplayer shooters, I think. But for what else I would want, yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I don't know how long they would wait before the next game. I imagine that it's going to be a few years before the next game, if there even is a next game. And so they might wait several years with a whole new development team, release something totally fresh, totally different. Who knows? But I would want crossplay, cross-save, and maybe even free-to-play if they can support it. They may not be able to support free-to-play, but it'll be nice because then it'll increase the player base. But who knows?
Without a doubt, I'll keep playing it. I like Plants vs Zombies. That's just I like the universe. I like the characters. I like the tone. I'll always play whatever Plants Zombie shooters come out. I still have a lot of content to make still for the existing 3. What I'd want from a next installment. I was thinking about this one. I'm thinking of a different game. I think the reason why the Crash Bandicoot remakes did so well, I remember watching like interviews, is the developers played an unhealthy amount of the original 3. And I don't know if that's, I haven't spoken to the developers of Battle for Neighborville or the PvZ shooters, but I reckon they should just fire up their Xbox 360s, their PS3s, or whatever they want to do and play a bunch of Garden Warfare 1 and really dial their minds back to what made Garden Warfare 1 so special. Because I think the game needs to refocus. They need to really focus on making it feel fluid. I think a lot of people know that the gunplay is quite clunky in Battle for Neighborville versus Garden Warfare 1 and 2. Yeah, I just want them to remember what made the first one especially so special. I like the PvE stuff. I think it's a good time, but once you're done with it, you're done with it. So, yeah, I don't know what they do about that. I don't play the PvZ shooters for the PvE. As much as they are really great, maybe they could be just like, I don't know, expansion packs or something, so they can really dedicate their time for at least the initial product they release. It's focusing on making a really great multiplayer experience, because that is what Garden Warfare 1 is. It's a really, really great multiplayer game.
I'm probably going to love the PvZ franchise forever. It's probably one of my favorite franchises, regardless if I'm making videos or not. So definitely I would make content on it. Obviously, I don't know when that was going to be, so I don't even know if I would be making content then. But even if I'm not doing YouTube full-time and streaming and stuff like that, I would still love to do it when I can, whether it be, videos or streams, because I don't do it for the money or anything like that. I do it because I enjoy making videos and stuff like that. It's why I started in the first place. So I'd still make content on it. Whether that would be YouTube videos or that would just be streaming it, playing with friends and stuff like that, I don't know. But if they did make another video, I'd definitely check it out. If it wasn't that great, I probably wouldn't play much. If it was amazing, I'd play it a lot. That's kind of where I am with games. I go through phases of playing games. Right now I'm addicted to Fall Guys and Minecraft again, even though I played Minecraft for years and then got bored of it. I'm loving playing it again now. I go through phases, so if the game's good, I'm going to play it more. If it's crap, I'm probably not going to play it too much. I'd still check it out, though. I love, multiplayer is a massive, massive thing when it comes to Plants vs. Zombies. So that's one thing which obviously comes to mind. But if I was going to just go off on a whim, and I was just going to go totally random, I think it would be good if they did some kind of, I know, this is hypothetical and probably not, in massive opinion and stuff like that, but how good would it be having a massive open world PvZ thing? It's never going to happen, but a massive open world thing where things are happening all the time. It kind of think of a Skyrim or something like that, but in the PvZ universe, I guess. I think that would be kind of wicked to check out. Obviously, I don't know how good would it be, but it'd be nice to try out.
I would absolutely return to Plants vs. Zombie shooters. What I would really like is if Garden Warfare 3 does exist, and if somehow Battle for Neighborville did not cause the death of the Plants vs. Zombies franchise, then I would be more than happy to make videos about Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare 3 or any other shooter game based on the Plants vs. Zombies franchise as a whole, depending on the quality of the game. Obviously, Battle for Neighborville didn't do so well, but I've given that game multiple chances, and honestly, it did not exceed my expectations as a consumer. And I think that speaks for everybody else as well. So if they put more quality into games, I really hope that if they do make a Garden Warfare 3, they would expand their content a lot more and bring back things that original fans really enjoyed from the past games. And I think with that would cause the future success of the game as a whole. And if that happens, so many people, including myself, would love to make YouTube videos about it. So I think to answer the question, if there were future Plants vs. Zombie shooters that were available, would I be interested in returning to them? The answer would be yes, because I definitely love Plants vs. Zombies as a whole. And I really want to see that game thrive and be successful. I say these constructive criticisms as me trying to help the game, but it feels like that the developers right now really refuse to listen to constructive criticism, which is pretty much why I got really upset with Battle for Neighborville. But hopefully, if they do ever try to get back on their feet and make another Plants vs. Zombie shooters, depending on the finances or an approval from the Electronic Arts company, I think what it will happen is that more people will be interested because of how the Plants vs. Zombies franchise as a whole has been thriving since 2009. And I think that will definitely attract the fan base back to those games, which will cause more content creators. And including myself, I would be very interested in returning. I think I spoke what's on my mind, I think. All right.
Well, honestly, I'm still a fan of the PvZ Shooter franchise, so if anything new is announced, I will be ready to play when it's released, and I'll be ready to stream, make content with it. It's the usual stuff that I did with BFN. And as my videos are around funny moments content, I'll basically record a lot of the content with the future PvZ game, and just same funny moment stuff with it. So whenever new PvZ games comes out, I'll check it out, see what it's like. I mean, it's the same thing I did with BFN. BFN was completely different with Garden Warfare. I personally was expecting Garden Warfare 3, but BFN, it looks very different, and I know a lot of people had mixed reactions, but still, I was still a fan of the PvZ Shooter. It was still a PvZ Shooter, so it's like, it's something new, I'll give it a go. Let's see how it goes. And I did enjoy it, Founders. I really did. I really did like the Founders. I really did give in that whole, but over the coming months, they just kind of literally just slowly drift away. But other than that, if there was a PvZ game in the making in the future, I would honestly love to see crossplay with it, because it definitely would connect with the other people that I play with, and it definitely will help a lot with the content as well.
I mean, I definitely, if they made another one, I'd definitely come back and play it. And I'm gonna give you the most generic, basic bitch answer in the world, and I'm gonna say I would love to see them just go back to the Garden Warfare format again, because I thought they had a really good thing there, and I would, could quite honestly, if they were to copy and paste Garden Warfare 2, like pixel for pixel, like slap some different maps in and some different characters, I would happily play that. Like, I'm easy to please, I guess. So,
how far in the future can you see yourself sticking by the series? Or at some point returning to it if you choose to move away from the shooters?
So as of now, of course, I'm sticking with the series, hoping in the next few months we get some sort of answer of what's to come with the franchise. And let's say PvZ is done, I'll probably slowly drift off from PvZ and try to find a different game to play on the channel, because I'm not just going to sit here and play PvZ for 5 years, going to, and just have nothing new to show on the channel. So, but I always stand by PvZ if there's ever something new.
I see myself sticking to it for a fair amount of time. I haven't sort of thought, oh, I'm coming to the end now. There's still plenty of stuff there. In terms of the shooters, there's still stuff to do. I think perhaps I'll probably start going down more the route of like mod reviews. I think that's probably an area that I will look into, because as the games get older, obviously the attention will naturally start to drop. But yeah, no, I haven't got any plans of stopping at the moment. Put it that way. But it's I'm I'm a very small YouTuber, so it's sort of seeing how the channel develops. So only time will tell, I guess.
So I definitely do plan on staying mostly in the shooters, because I do want to showcase some of my Garden Warfare 2 mods, of course, because there's a lot of them that I have sitting around just really wasting space, and I think no one's seen them yet, aside from people at my Discord server, of course. And I'm mostly going to be doing that, but I do probably will not stick by it for after a year, because I do want to put more focus on my PvZ 2 mod, of course. So that's probably going to get more of my focus than the shooter.
Yeah, well, so nothing new comes its way. I'll probably do just occasional returns to the series, kind of like I've done with Garden Warfare 1 and Garden Warfare 2, where, and it's not just those games. It's not just Plants vs. Zombies games that do this. Like I cover a lot of new games, like a lot of new content from all different platforms, all different series. And, we kind of saw the same thing happen with Garden Warfare 1 and 2, where eventually there wasn't as many updates, so I wasn't playing it as much. And then, if there would be some news, sometimes I might return to the series for a few episodes just to kind of reminisce and have fun. And I expect the same thing will happen with Battle for Neighborville, where, like, I'll cover the new content. I know I'm a little bit behind on this month, covering this month, but there might be a good reason to jump back in. And who knows? Maybe they might have some surprises. I don't know. I don't know if development's fully stopped or if they just are managing expectations, because someone's got to manage the servers. Someone's got to I don't know if there's going to be any balancing updates. How done is done. I don't think they've been super clear on that. I could foresee balancing updates, and in other games I've covered, like Splatoon 1 and 2, once Splatoon 1 was done with its cycle and they weren't adding any new content, I kind of stopped covering it. And the same thing happened with Splatoon 2. But then Splatoon 2 kind of decided to resume Splatfest again, and so I started covering Splatoon 2 again. And so, I might return to the series occasionally, just like I would with Garden Warfare 1 or Garden Warfare 2, so I might play Battle for Neighborville occasionally. But definitely if they do add new content or balance updates or make any sort of news or waves in the market, something that would make me want to return and talk about that, or I'll definitely return to the series in the future. It's just a matter of how often, I think.
Yeah, okay, I'll keep playing the games until I'm out of videos to make. I like to do everything I can when it comes to playing a game. So I've still got all the costumes to showcase. I've still got a couple of the elite bosses to find in Battle for Neighborville. I still haven't actually finished Mount Steep, that PvE region. Garden Warfare 2, I'm still not max rank on PC. I'm I think 5,000, so I've got a bit more to go. So I'll see myself sticking with the series for as long as I've still got things to do. At the end of the day, I'm just a fan of the game itself. I just happen to upload what I play. So I'll keep sticking around. I as I stated in the previous question, I like Plants vs Zombies in the first place. But if something better comes out, I guess naturally I'd play that if I enjoy it more. Ultimately, that's what I play games for, just to have fun. So I'll stick around as long as there's stuff for me to do, stuff I feel like I still need to do. And I don't know, I guess I have faith in the series. I do hope that Plants vs Zombies sticks around for a long time.
I think I mentioned this earlier before. I'm always going to be a fan of PvZ. I'm always gonna, if I'm still making content, I'm gonna make content on Plants vs Zombies because I love it. And like I said, if I like the game, I'll probably make more content on it. If I don't like the game, I'll probably make less content on it. But I'm always willing to check it out. Even though I know less people at PopCap now, I still have some friends that I can call friends, not just people at PopCap that work there. So I'm always going to be talking to them, even if they're not at PopCap anymore and stuff like that. But if they are still there, I'm obviously going to be talking to them. But I'm always going to check out the game. But regardless of how much content I make, or even if I don't make content, I'm still going to play the game in my free time anyway. I love the series, and unless they do something which really, it's like a knife in the chest or something like that. I can't see myself just dropping the series completely or anything like that.
Well, if this is the end of the franchise, honestly, once I'm done reaching max rank on all platforms that I currently own, once I'm done with BFN and everything, then yeah, I'm done with PvZ as a whole, really. I really am. There's no reason for me to return, because I'm Garden Warfare. Garden Warfare 2, there's really nothing I can do. BFN, I've done everything. PvE, regions, everything. I've completed everything on it. So it's there's not really much reasoning for me to just come back. So
this is assuming I think you
come. I don't know really, because a little while back I kind of hit breaking point with the series a little bit, and I was like, okay, I need to just stop playing. I need to just do other things, and I took quite a long break. I went away for a good few months, and I thought it was going to be quite detrimental to my channel, but it actually wasn't. People were really welcoming of me moving away and doing other stuff. I think people could see that I was getting it was breaking me a little bit, so people were really like accommodating and really welcoming of me going off and doing other stuff. And in the end, I came back because I actually wanted to. Like, I don't really, I don't fuck with BFN or Garden Warfare 1 much anymore, but definitely Garden Warfare 2 has probably been one of my favorite games of all time. So honestly, I think all the while I'm enjoying playing it and people are enjoying watching it, I'll continue to do it. It doesn't seem like any reason not to, really.
Yeah, closing thoughts is, I'm still alive, guys. If you guys see this on YouTube, will I ever come back? Probably. I wouldn't hold my breath, to be honest, but my channel wasn't originally exclusive to PvZ content. That's just something that kind of gradually took over to the point where people think my channel is just about PvZ. But if I ever find a game in the future that that pulls me in, just like God of Warfare 1 originally did, my channel could change into that. I could definitely gravitate towards that game. So, or if PopCap, if I end up just going back to God of Warfare 2, you'll definitely see that type of gameplay. But yeah, just I guess just know that I'm still alive, and you might see content down the line, maybe in a few months, who knows? But that's pretty much it.
For everyone that stopped by, played PvZ, hope that we have a new game or anything like that, because this franchise is amazing, and I'm glad you guys are part of it.
I thought they would support the game for longer. I actually thought the final update would contain Ops Phase 3, but they definitely did not do that, and I don't think we're going to be seeing a potential fourth shooter. I don't see EA taking the risk, because they really, really, really missed the mark with Battle for Neighborville.
Well, I really, as a content creator, I don't think there's been a more fun series to cover than the Plants vs. Zombies series. There's been so many different types of games and genres to cover, and I truly appreciate all the hard work that went into the games. I don't like to characterize, games as failures necessarily, because I think that we got a good solid year out of it, and it was a really fun title, Battle for Neighborville, and we knew that we would move on eventually. It was just a matter of we would get 1 year, 2 year, 3 years out of it. How long are we going to get out of it? And I was hoping for much longer. I'm glad that we got a year. Of course, always would want much more. But I'm looking forward to any Plants vs. Zombies content, whether or not they ever release Plants vs. Zombies 3 for mobile platforms. I know they have kind of an early release in certain countries. I do hope that makes a full release. But it's happened with other games too, not just within Plants vs. Zombies, but tons of games out there. And so hopefully they move on with the series and make something truly unique and surprising, and keep it fresh, because I'm going to want to be covering Plants vs. Zombies content, and I'm looking forward to much more.
I guess I've always enjoyed it. I just like Plants vs. Zombies. I just want a good game. That's really all. I want a good time. I want something I can play with my friends.
First of all, guys, make sure you subscribe and like the video, because if you've got this far, then you liked the video, so make sure you do like it, because you guys don't know how much of a difference it makes to YouTube channels. Trust me, I've been there. Some of you guys don't know. So make sure you go like it, subscribe, and also as far as PvZ goes, it seems like it might be the end of the shooters, but the servers are still going to be there. You can still play them. You can still go play with friends, and there's a lot of other great games out there if you do need them. But I think you guys should leave your favorite memory in the comments down below of PvZ. That's one of the questions I think you give me. So let's pass it on to the community.
For BFN, it's just I really don't know what PopCap is doing. Honestly, I am disappointed with them. It's just their decisions in the updates, their everything is just, I don't know how they didn't really pull it off with this one. This BFN had so much potential. I could see it. Everyone making concept, everyone making ideas. I can tell the community was still sticking with BFN. They still had that energy. They were like, you know what? They should do this. They should add this. Look at Iceberg. It looks cool. I can't wait for that. I could tell the community really wanted more with BFN, but the fact that it didn't really work out well, because I personally believe it's the poor management with the updates, it really did suck for everyone, and I wasn't really too happy with it.
If maybe you have any closing thoughts or anything else you'd like to say, feel free.
It's alright, guys, don't worry. They'll fix it.
You are a card.
Start playing on the Australian servers again.
Alright, thank you very much, and very grateful for you agreeing to do this.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. Nice talking to you, man.
Alright, thank you very much for this for being here for this interview.
No problem, thank you.
Alright, well, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you for, well, not really to the game, but thanks for having me. Sorry that I've took up over an hour of time for editing, but...
So yeah, I just wanted to thank you very much for agreeing to this interview and giving us, community, your answers.
Not a problem at all.
If you actually watched the whole thing to get here, congratulations. You're crazy. Thank you so much to every content creator who participated. And thank you to the community that made all of this possible.
Let's move on to the next question so Krook doesn't have too much of a
I'm sorry, Krook.
Trying to edit this.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Krook.